Whether you're at the base of your own personal Everest, navigating the twists and turns of your career, or simply seeking inspiration to keep climbing, join us as we embark on a shared expedition of growth, learning, and triumph, where every step forward is a victory and every story shared is a beacon of hope. I'm your host, David, and together, let's ascend to new heights. Welcome to the Climbing the Ladder podcast. All right, this is the first episode of Climbing the Ladder podcast. We're here with Frank Ball. Many weeks of preparation coming up to this. I appreciate you doing this, sir. We're in your lovely home out here in Georgia. How are you doing?
Doing great. Welcome to Ball House, by the way. True story. Was in Berlin, Germany years ago, and we stayed at this place called the Titanic, which, kind of go figure, right? The Titanic Hotel. And right across the street is this place called Ball House. And I walk in there, and, of course, I'd had a beer or two, because it's Germany. So I walk in there, and I was like, Ball House, das ist mein Haus, das ist Ball House, yeah? And I pull out, my ID, and the guy looks at me and goes, oh, Ball, das ist Ball House, yeah. So we drank our asses off that night. And no lie, I think the bill was €7.
That's unbelievable. And you were kind of my first choice for episode 1. Your military background, kind of your life story, but when I met you, I met a character on one of the Crown rallies, and we've been in touch ever since. Yeah,
what you see is what you get, unfortunately. I'm apologetic for who I am some days, and other days what you see is what you get. So, yeah, I tend to put myself out there a little bit, and I always thought about it like this, Dave. You have one life to live. No one's going to remember us 100 years from now, so, why worry too much about it? Have fun while you're here. And by the way, make a good experience with the people that you're around too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of know my history with my shop and how I came up. I kind of switched my life path a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because you're going to interview me, and that's great. But I think the listeners need to understand who Dave Francis is. So, Dave, you're not American.
So we're switching this up a little bit. So,
just a tiny bit, because I think it's important, right? Episode 1, I'm going to take advantage of it.
Okay.
You're my house, so my house rules for only about 10 seconds. You're not American.
No, I'm not. I actually grew up just outside of Toronto.
Right. So Okotoks,
Mississauga is where I grew up my whole life. Yeah. It's actually, I haven't been back probably since COVID. I think I've been back one time since COVID. So I don't know how much it's changed, but the last time I was there is completely different from where I grew up. It's all subdivisions. There's no farmland anywhere else. And my dad retired, and they actually moved up north into the Muskoka area.
Oh, so they're up in the into cottage country.
Yeah, they're way up there in the
Lake Rosso or Lake Joe.
So they are close to, if you get just a little past Lake Simcoe.
Okay, I know Simcoe.
The town that nobody knows is called Kearney, Ontario. It's a population of about 500 people. So
beautiful.
If I say Kearney, I have to say like Huntsville, which is the next biggest city close to them, which is about 30 minutes away.
So hilarious story. So to get to actually get to Muskoka, you get on the 400. And you go through Barrie, which is funny because if you're here in Atlanta, you leave Atlanta to get to my house, and you get on the 400 to come to Ball's house, and it's a whole nother story. So you grew up in the farmland out there, right? OA, right?
Not necessarily. So I grew up right between you got Brampton, Milton, Guelph, and Mississauga, and where I grew up in a subdivision. I'm a city boy when it comes to that, but because we had my parents had the cottage growing up, I was always out in the woods. I was in the city, so I kind of had the best of both worlds growing up.
But you were out there riding snowmobiles and then going to Laura Gorge. I know this area kind of well, by the way, right?
Absolutely.
So in Guelph, and by the what's the Guelph University is there too, right?
Yep.
And you were tripping over, I think, some balls and stuff along the way, right?
So I was. So baseball was a big part of just sports in general growing up. My dad played in the CFL for 6 years in the 80s, so sports was kind of a lifestyle with me growing up. Unfortunately, it's one of those situations where he kind of throw a football. Well, I don't want to do that, but I can throw a baseball really well, so that's what I ended up doing. I started T-ball at 5 years old, and I quit because nobody was throwing the ball to me. I didn't want to hit it off a tee.
Interesting.
So from 5 years old, I played about half a season of T-ball, realized it wasn't fun because I always had I could throw really well from when I was 2 or 3. So if I wasn't throwing the ball or somebody wasn't throwing to me, because my dad would always throw it to me to hit it, even at 5 years old, it wasn't fun. Like there's no challenge there with hitting it off a tee. So from 5 to 9, I didn't play baseball at all. 9 years old was the first year in Canada where it was rookie ball. So half of the year was pitching machine, and the second half was you had somebody pitching to you. And that was kind of my even out, be like, all right, well, I guess I'll try this again. And apparently it worked out because I went a little further than Little League, as you know.
Yeah, you kind of like you minor majored, right? You minored in baseball and majored in it, right?
I did. I ended up playing a couple years up. I played city ball for a little while with Mississauga North, which is we call rep, which is above your Little League teams. It's guys, you get recruited. You have to try out for the teams. Right. So you have to make the teams, and they have different levels, very much like the minor leagues. It's A-ball, AA, AAA. So I kind of went through all that until the Ontario Blue Jays found me, which is a travel ball team.
Yep.
As soon as I started playing travel ball team, high school sports in the U.S., as you know, is very popular. They put a lot of money in. We don't have that kind of thing.
I know.
We have like if you went to one of our high school football stadiums, you'll see a stack of metal bleachers that might hold 50 people. Like, nobody cares about high school sports. It's all travel ball. Hockey's a big one.
Hockey's huge, right?
I never really enjoyed ever growing up. I might have tried one Little League practice, and I was like, nope, this isn't for me.
I was a hockey player.
Yeah. So that's the comment I get when people find out I'm from Canada is, why didn't you play hockey? I didn't like it, and I have no idea why. It just didn't appeal to me that way. But
how far did you take it? How far did you go?
For
baseball.
So
everybody knows, because I don't think everybody knows.
As high as I went, I played in the minor league system for 3 years with the Atlanta Braves. I was drafted in the 12th round in 2008.
Nice.
I played up coming through. My first roommate as soon as we got drafted was Craig Kimbrell, as a lot of baseball fans will know. Very good closer. And then I played with Freddie Freeman and Jason Hayward coming up through Myrtle Beach.
Nice. Freddie Freeman. Holy cow, man.
He's a character. And honestly, if I can get a hold of him again, I would like to have him on here, because he's got a story in itself. He's got that baseball climb, but not a lot of people know that he lost one of his parents coming up through this. So that really affected his life.
Well, what if I told you I know somebody that knows somebody? So the Atlanta community here, we've got some guy, Millwood Rocker, that whole, John Rocker, the whole thing. I've played in a few golf tournaments, and I won't go into it here. We'll talk about it offline. But I've got a few phone numbers, so I might be able to get you connected, believe it or not.
Well, and that's kind of my plan with this podcast is you meet people through people. And that's kind of how I met you. Is my detail shop is G-Technic accredited, and G-Technic was a sponsor for Crown Rally, and we ended up doing washing the cars for one of your stops. And that's how we met. And it's been like this ever since.
And I'm the weird guy. He washes everybody's cars and gets his detail crew out there, and I go out and actually talk to him.
Yeah, and I actually think you're the first time we met, your car was the only one I washed.
Yeah, we had the R8. That was the launch car for Halo.
With the Halo. Yeah,
so we did the launch car for Halo. So I'm curious, and I just want the listeners to know. We'll get to me, but I'm curious. So how do you pivot from baseball into detailing cars? Where'd your passion on cars come from?
We just talked about it a minute ago. My family not my dad specifically, but his brother, his brother-in-law are big into cars and older cars, and it kind of grew up, and it was always an interest to me when we went to family gatherings, or, oh, that's a cool old car. He had 30s Buicks growing up, so it was always an interest. Cars have always been my passion. As you know, I've had a few fast cars, highly modified cars. I've blown up an engine or two.
He does a good job, by the way. On Tail of the Dragon, I follow behind him. He does a good job.
Yeah. I was kind of impressed. Trying to keep up with you with your racing history, and I know the road more than you, and I still can't keep up with that. So
that's all good. You're just, it's a drag race from corner to corner. You're just looking where you're going.
Cars have always been a hobby. So after baseball, I had some family issues. Ended up going through a divorce with my first wife and a custody battle. Through all that, I decided to retire from baseball to focus on my son at the time. He's 13 now.
Right.
He's about to be 14 in March. So it's been a long way. I think I'm 12 years out of baseball right now. 2012 was my last year. And I actually have full custody of my son with my wife now. That's Hope. That makes everything that I've gone through in the last 8 years we've been married possible, because my parents were well off. My dad's now a lawyer. He used to play professional football. So we always had money growing up.
Right.
And where I find the difference as an adult now, I see it looking back, is if I had $11, I would spend $12 with no worry about consequence. And my wife was kind of the opposite. They didn't grow up with a lot of money, and she kind of keeps me under control. She knows my car hobby, so that kind of gets off track a little bit, but she keeps me under control. And
she rewards you. So I notice I follow you guys, religiously, because I love your family. I love the stuff that you're doing. I love your passion in the business, by the way, and that's why I want to make sure we talk about you a little bit on this as well. But she ties into your passion for watches, and I always see every once in a while that you get these gifts from her.
She does. So I'm very hard to shop for, because if I want something, I'll just go buy it for myself. I don't think about it that way. I just like, oh, that looks cool. Like, I've had a couple spontaneous purchases that have been up there. So I know not to do that with watches because she enjoys doing that for me. She knows I enjoy it. And she kind of, after doing that a couple years, she kind of got into it herself. She went to go buy me a watch, I think about 3 years ago for our anniversary, and ended up buying one for herself. And we'll look down, and there's a $12,000 bill coming out of the jewelers. And I was like,
what is this?
This watch wasn't that much. What did you get? And she came home with one that she got for herself.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah. She deserves it all. I mean, without her, our shop wouldn't be where it is, and I wouldn't be able to do this right now.
So shout out to your shop, by the way, because you and I have talked a lot. I actually offered to invest in your business at one point in time, and
yeah.
I loved it. Dave's like, no, I appreciate you, but I don't need it.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me starting the business. Is I see a lot of my friends, they'll have silent investors, so to speak. Not to say you were going to be one, but I didn't want somebody to say I helped him do that.
Right.
The biggest thing, we went from a corner of my garage. I turned my hobby into a job. After baseball, I worked some jobs. Like I worked for Sprint. I worked for Panera Bread. Nothing fulfilling. I mean, you know how it is with the service industry. I'm not really interested in it. So I kind of like, I don't want to do this. So I took some time off and decided that I wanted to turn my hobby into a job. So I spent $2,500 on some compounds, polishes, lights, some cheap stuff. Like I didn't know how to use it all at the time. I just knew how to wax a car and wash a car, and turn that into a business. And I think for the first year I did about $50 to $100 a car. Not very long, but that was my only source of income. I didn't have a job. I dedicated myself to it. And we went from $2,500 in the corner of my garage to a 10,000 square foot shop in just under 2 years. All paid for itself, no investors, no business loans.
And equipment-wise, you're on the leading edge, so you've got dry ice blasting. You're doing all the stuff that was when trends were coming up. You were on the forefront of a lot of that stuff.
We've talked about dry ice as well. Thanks to Dry Ice Energy, they're a big part of our business now.
Not an investor, by the way. He won't take
No,
them.
he won't. I try not to push dry ice too much because we don't have the dedicated space for it yet. It's a very messy system. It works very well. We did a big project last year with Harper Porsche. Porsche. I know you owners.
Whatever.
It's hard for me because I say Porsche a lot, but if I say that, people look at me funny.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. But we did some dry ice blasting for a restoration challenge they did last year on a 993. And that came out really well. I can post some pictures up on whoever's watching on the video podcast. I'll pop it up on the screen, kind of a before and after. But detailing, ceramic coating, polishing, and paint protection film are the biggest part of our business. That's what really keeps us going, drives us through there. But I didn't start any of that. I didn't start window tint or paint protection film for 2 years. So it was just coatings coming up, polishing. The way I looked at it building my business is if I hire somebody, I had 2 guys working for me at the time once we got into bigger shops. But if they left, I had to be able to do what I could myself to still pay the bills. So I didn't want to throw.
You wanted to know how to do everything.
That's
right.
That was the key for me. So I didn't want to rely on somebody. If they were like, this isn't for me, and they just didn't show up one day, I could jump in and finish the job, and our bills are still paid because we don't have anything else to fall back on. Hope was a regional manager for Gigi's Cupcakes for 7 years, but she was only making $40,000 a year. So it really wasn't much. And once we made that jump into the big shop, she finally is like, all right, you're actually going to do this. I remember when we first got married, those that don't know me and Hope, we actually got married after 3 days of knowing each other.
Wow.
We were both married before. We were both divorced. It was kind of like we met. I was introduced to her through her sister, Kayla, her and I were really good friends through the car community. And I was like, I know what I want. I know what I don't want. I'm not going to waste another 11 months on an empty relationship. Let's do it or not. And if it doesn't, I'm not going to do it again.
Right.
And we're going on 8 years now. And it's when I tell that story to the older generation, they're just like they're flabbergasted. They don't know what we were thinking.
Well, for anybody that follows you, I see it. I see the love. I see the passion and the relationship and the passion of what you guys do. So it shows through. And some days you're lucky, some days you're smart. You might have gotten both on that one.
Yeah. We'll definitely go with lucky. I appreciate Kayla and everything she did coming up. And I was driving the SRT4 Neons at the time.
Yeah.
And that was one of Hope's questions because she's a car person. Her first car was a Trans Am. We still have it. She's had it 14 years.
Nice.
Yeah. So her first car was a Trans Am, and she asked her sister. She told me this story, and I laughed at it. She's like, she asked her sister, well, what does he drive? Because we were going on a blind date that night at a car meet. And Kayla was like, he drives a Dodge Neon. Oh, absolutely not. I'm not going. But little did she know that car made almost 600 horsepower.
Yeah.
And the first time she rode with me, We raced some motorcycles, and the car ended up outrunning a motorcycle, and that was kind of her. Well, this is fun.
Oh.
Yeah. One of those, engine blew up in that car, so that was not. And I've always grown up a Dodge fan.
Me too. I'm a Mopar
None of my
guy.
family has a lot of Dodge cars. It's all Chevrolet. My uncles worked for GM for a long time. But my first poster car was a Dodge Viper. And the whole reason I started finishing touch was to buy one of those cars. And I ended up doing that last Christmas. And it was kind of like I did it. But now I want something else, and we'll go with the Viper ACR in the Gen 5, which is up in the $300,000 now, which is still out of my range. But yes, an amazing car.
So, by the way, on the video side, hopefully he sticks a picture right there of his Viper and his Dream Viper. By the way, it's good to have goals.
Which is another engine that needs work right now that's getting rebuilt.
That's how the V10 Vipers are that way. But by the way, so you touch on a key point there. When you start, because you have a ton of passion in your business. Like I knew it the day that I met you. That's why we stayed in touch. What drives you? You had the goal, right, of getting the Viper. Now you've got an ACR out there. What drives you? And why? Two things. Like you're climbing a ladder, and by the way, we're always going to climb a ladder until we get to the big ladder in the sky. But what drives you? How do you establish your goals and prioritize stuff? What was your focus early on in this, and how did you grow your business to be successful?
Early on, it was all about cars. Like we were married. Hope and I were first beginning to know each other in the first year because we didn't know each other when we got married. So that was a rough year for us, back and forth fights and stuff. But we kept it going. The business, it was all about cars for me because baseball was kind of out of my life.
Right.
When I got out of baseball, it hit me pretty hard mentally. I was pretty depressed for 6 months to a year after that, and not knowing what to do because that was my whole life. From 9 years old all the way up to about 23, that was live, breathe, everything. And our guest for episode 2, we're kind of getting into that and kind of the backstory of minor league baseball and the sacrifices you have to make because there are class action lawsuits now to where they're breaking it down by hour, and if you break your payment down by hour, you're making pennies. I mean, it's your whole life. It takes up your whole life on and off the field. Right. So my drive was now my family, if we get into this way, is support them in the best life I can possibly give them because that's what my parents did. My dad grew up. I was growing up. I didn't see my dad a lot, and I can kind of see that in myself now, which is a little bit of a regret with how big the shop has become because I don't get to spend as much time with my kids. But Hope works for me. So they're always at the shop, and we only live a mile away. So we still get that time to interact. But if they have sports growing up, like Dane plays baseball, he's doing really well in baseball. Ariel wants to do gymnastics or voice lessons, and I'm sure Cam, at this point, at 3 years old, he wants to drive monster trucks. But that, with our car background, that could be a possibility. Yes, yeah. Everything expensive, so I want to try to give them the opportunity to do anything they want to do, and let the financial side not be a limitation to that. Right. And that's really what started it, was my drive.
Awesome. What's next?
Man, I don't know. This podcast is one of those things where I was being consumed by the shop so much. I was there. This kind of gives me an outlet, like driving and baseball does, is meeting other people. That's what I enjoy doing. You go to SEMA, you go to trade shows. I enjoy meeting other people in the industry with the same passion.
So I want everybody to hear that. So key questions, what's next? I think entrepreneurs always think about what's next.
Yeah.
Right?
There's absolutely. There's always something else, and it's you just want to be successful in everything you do.
Yeah.
You just have that natural drive, and that's what a lot of people, there's a lot of people in the world that don't have that. There's plenty of guys that work for me that can run their own business. They don't want that. They don't want that stress. They don't want that headache. They want to come into work, do what they need to do, and go home and enjoy time with their family.
Takes a lot,
it does.
To get out there and take a step.
Yeah.
I think we're fortunate because I try a lot of things, right? I've got I'm older than you. I mean, I've got years of savings and other stuff behind it, but I'm always looking at new things. I'm always thinking about new things. I always, I'm on Frank 5.0. Truth be known, right? Because I mean, I've lived
well, you've had a few different ladders in your time, and we're going to kind of get into that as we go through this. There's many jump ladder to ladder that you're climbing.
It's and I look at life as a book, right? You're writing your own story, and you get to write your own chapters. The question is, are you writing them or somebody else writing them? And that's the thing that you have to. You have to realize early in life that you have one life to live, and if you don't take control of it, you don't do the things that you want to do, they'll never get done. No one else is going to do them for you. And I think I don't think people ever, realize that. They don't get out of their own way.
Yeah, and what I wanted to start with this, same thing with my my introduction, because we have to upload stuff to Spotify to register. So I have a little 30-second to a minute clip of kind of a background of what this show is going to be. And one of those comments in there that stuck with me growing up was, success could be around the next corner you turn. It could be somebody you run into. It could be an idea that just hits you seeing a car pass by. Don't feel like you're stuck. That's the biggest thing. You can always look for something else. You can enjoy doing what you're doing right now, but it doesn't hurt to look. I mean, you can look. If you don't open your eyes, you're never going to see it.
I think all you have to do is turn on YouTube or go drive through a city and look at somebody else's life, and then, look at how they're living and how you don't want to live, right? Yeah. And that's an eye-opener. And by the way, not looking down on anybody, because I think everybody has the opportunity and should take the opportunity when they give a chance that's presented in front of them to do it. A lot of people just don't.
And that was a big thing for me is in my first marriage, we didn't have a lot of money. When I played baseball, my signing bonus was good, but I had a gambling problem going into pro ball. So I went through $80,000 in 9 months.
So you're a Pete Rose fan?
Yeah, I actually am.
I am too.
I truly believe he should be in the Hall of Fame.
So do I.
He's one of the best baseball players to ever live. I don't really agree with the way the Hall of Fame does it. If their off-the-field antics kind of diminish their chances to get in the Hall of Fame, that's not what it's about. They're the best player. They should be there. Steroids aside, I don't agree with that coming up. But gambling and all that stuff, he should be there. He's one of the best players of all time.
I knew his son. So
did you really?
Pete Rose Jr. played in the Sally League team, played for the Columbus Redbirds.
Okay.
I was at University of South Carolina in college. I lived right around the corner from the Columbia Mets. I don't remember. I don't remember who what her team was, but used to go there all the time. Just loved it. I grew up hating baseball, by the way, just so you know.
So I'll tell you a little secret. I don't like watching baseball.
I was never a fan. Honestly, I wasn't. And I never played club sport or anything.
To me, it's not an entertaining sport unless you really know it. Like, if you're a baseball player, you know the statistics, you know the strategies. Right. When you don't know any of that, baseball's boring, and I understand it. People think all the athletes are overpaid. A lot of sports are, because you played it growing up. It's kind of easy. They don't understand why they're paid so much, and me and Anthony are going to kind of get into that next week. Is the outside of it?
Well, there's a level, right?
Yeah,
and it goes from this level to that level.
Yeah.
And it's so different on those levels.
Well, it's just like racing. Everybody drives a car around.
Oh, yeah.
They'll hop on the track and be like, I could do that.
And even racing, right? Even racing, to get up in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s, in a large field like that, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work, and as you said,
a lot of it's political too. Once you get into the higher levels, if it's money, you could have the best driver running P30 because of the equipment they're in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just part of it.
True. And sponsorship and everything else that goes into it. But I always think it's unique. I'll digress for just a second. I was never a baseball fan until I went to college. And then I had a really good friend that I went to University of South Carolina. He was a catcher there, Casey Gimenez, and really good. And my roommate, Jeff Kennard, was a baseball player. And just super, super cool guy. And I started going to games and got into it. And I grew up everywhere in my life. Chicago was kind of an anchor point. And as a kid, I used to like the Cubs, but I didn't really watch the Cubs. And it wasn't until I got into college that I started watching it. And that's when I realized, by the way, that God is a Cubs fan.
Really?
Did you not know this?
I did not know this.
So Will Clark, God, bless San Francisco. San Francisco beats the Cubs in the NCLS, right? So they're going to go to the World Series. And it's across the bay. They're playing Oakland, and God was so pissed off the Cubs weren't. And he tried to kick California in the ocean. That's the year they had the big earthquake. That's when I knew God was a Cubs fan, by the way.
God's a Cubs fan. Why did he wait 100 years for them to win the World Series?
Because it takes time. You have to, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? It took a while for them to build Rome, and it took God a little while to create.
I just had to poke. I have nothing wrong with the Cubs.
I'm teasing.
I was drafted by the Cubs in my first year coming out of high school. I was ranked a high prospect coming out of high school as a pitcher, and broke my wrist 2 weeks before the draft. So I was projected in the top 10 rounds coming out of high school, and 2 weeks before the draft, I broke my wrist, and I went to the 37th round to the Cubs.
What year was that?
That was 2006.
06. I'm trying to think. Was Zimmer still there?
I think he was.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's funny because all the great Cubs players, right, left and went to the Braves, and the Braves go to the World Series.
And yeah,
Maddox.
Well,
Olsen.
when I played with the Braves, a lot of the trade deadlines for the guys that got released would go to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of, they played back and forth. Baseball's a crazy game when it comes to traveling and where you could go next, and you don't have a choice about it. Is all right, you're going here, and your family could be set up if you have a family coming up through the minor leagues. You got a apartment somewhere. All right, you're getting called up.
You're on the go.
Yeah, and now your wife is sitting there by herself, wondering if you're coming back down, or are you going to tell her that, all right, we got to move again. So
here we go.
It's I very much think of it as a military mentality, even though I was never in the military.
I agree. I was going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth,
Yeah.
and I'll say it so you guys don't judge them on it. But that's kind of how the military was, right? We had, I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and we had Division Reactionary Force. We had DRF 1 through 9, and somebody was always on some level of call. And you get the call, like, here we go.
Yeah.
We're going. And
And
you don't get to call your family, right? You at least got to call your family. You don't get to call your family. It's just watch the news.
You're going now, and there's no warning about it. But let's kind of get into you. That's enough about me. I can put a background on myself, but
I think it's important for people to know.
Yeah, for episode 1, I like how you flipped that a little bit. It was expected but not expected. I figured it would come up with that, but not kind of a 20-minute segment.
It's good.
Your childhood. Let's start there. That was a ride.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, my childhood made me who I am. I'll just tell you that.
And I agree with that. I think that's kind of it. You said it a minute ago is the life you don't want to live.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I mean, I'll sum it up for everybody. Fear. For years, I think up until I was probably in my early to mid 40s, fear drove me on everything. Fear of failure.
That's the biggest one for me is I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
When I started the shop to go full time and then Hope quit her job, as soon as she quit her job to do this full time, there's no other option. That was, I'm going to make it work, whether I'm up 25 hours a day or what.
Well, especially when you have children, right? And you talked about that, but on the childhood side, so I never knew my dad. So I even to this day I don't know who my dad was. So I'm the bastard on the baller, the bastard. It's all good, whatever. I don't have any regrets on that. That's, his issue, his problem, his fault, whatever. And just, it is what it is.
Me and Hope are actually adopted, and I was adopted before birth. It was set up that way.
Then you can relate.
I don't know my birth parents.
Then you can relate. Yeah. And you have a family that truly loves you.
I do.
Right. Because you know that. My mom, so one of 12 kids, I think she struggled for identity, and I think it was tougher on women coming up back then. So I had a sister before me that passed before I was born, and then she had me, and I don't think she was ready for children. I don't think a lot of people in that era were. Vietnam War, everything is going on, but I got passed around a lot. So I ended up living with my grandmother, aunts, uncles. My mom was always trying to find her own way on stuff. Some of it intentionally in the right way, and then at some point in time, I think she had a real big self-esteem issue, which carries through in life, by the way. But I think she had a self-esteem issue, and she just never found herself.
Yeah.
She was always looking for love in all the wrong places, to steal a cliche. And we'll fast forward. After a while, my mom and I moved to South Carolina. We're living up in D.C. She moved to South Carolina, borrowed some money, did some stuff.
How old were you at this point?
I was in probably 7th grade. I'm just trying to think of the year time frames. I have to think. No. I was old. I had been in high school, so I was in 9th grade. And we were moving to South Carolina. I get down there, and I worked. I was a stick boy for the Washington Capitals, a visiting locker room, right? So I got that job by babysitting. I always have a saying, you're either lucky or smart, and I've been both at times in my life. I was out looking to do things to do. I met somebody at the pool. Somebody's like, "Hey, do you babysit?" I'm like, "I can babysit, whatever." So I watched this guy Keith Parker. Had 3 kids. They were Canadian. I think he was out from Edmonton in that area. He was a goalie at one point in time. I loved ice hockey. I was playing ice hockey at the time, paying for my own way to play ice hockey.
And that's a sport I don't like playing, but I love watching.
I loved
it's
playing it.
Entertaining.
Yeah, I was never that great. Truth be known, I was a really good skater, and the biggest problem that I had, I played left-handed. Just to getting that puck to move for me some days, that thing's heavier than you can imagine. But I worked on it. I played street hockey and all other crap. So anyways, this guy Keith Parker is like, "Hey, you want a pair of skates?" I'm like, "Yeah." So Lang Laser 5s are like the big thing, these plastic skates, which everybody skated on Bowers, and I wanted a pair. So he got me a pair, and long story even longer. He asked me one time, he's like, hey, he was equipment manager, by the way. He worked for Gump Embro, who was the trainer. So he was equipment manager, assistant trainer. And he's like, hey, can you come in and help me, rearrange and clean up the stock room? And I'm like, yeah. And I was one of those weird kids. And I don't know where I got this from. And no, I wasn't gay, and nobody's gay. I don't care. That's cool for you. But I liked organization.
You got to be careful what you say online now.
I know.
It's pretty crazy.
But I liked organization, right? I like to keep my room kind of in order. I like to know where my stuff was.
I noticed that is a big trait that a lot of successful people have. To quote the show, the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper. When for those of you who haven't seen it, it's basically a magic pill that allows you to have a higher IQ. And the first thing he did after he took that pill was organize his apartment. And that's a big thing.
I wish I could go back and do that now. I got too much shit to do it.
But organization is a very key to kind of starting your path.
Well, and we'll talk about this because I'm going to talk about visualization on stuff. So he asked me to come in and do this, and I sure, I go in. So he's going to pay me $15, whatever it was back in the 79, 80 time frame. So I go in there and we reorganize the entire equipment room. And by the way, he leaves and I just organize it. Clean it up. He shows me how to sharpen skates and some of this other stuff. So I'm dorking around doing that. And this guy, Gump and Bro, comes in. He goes, who are you? And I'm like, by the way, I was Frank Sullivan at the time because I was adopted later in life.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I remember you made a comment on that, and it didn't click till you just said that again.
Yeah. So I grew up Frank Sullivan. I had a name change actually in the Army. We'll get into it. But he's like, you want a job, kid? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He's like, okay, cool. Pays $15 a night. You're the stick boy in the visiting locker room. So this is 79-80 season. So 80-81, the dream team plays. Yep. And the next year I'm there and I'm sitting on the bench with Wayne Gretzky. No lie. Because my job was to prep the room, get everything set up. They had these heat packs, and you probably remember them. They looked like these old things that were in these water jugs, and they would use them for muscles and stuff. But they'd also stick their sticks in there, shape their sticks, and the players did their own stuff on their stuff. So do that. I had to get all the sticks out onto the bench, right, in case they broke one. I had to get all the water bottles filled and all the Gatorade and all the other. I was basically the bitch boy, for everything that they did. But I met a lot of really cool people in doing that, and it opened up a pathway for me. It made me realize the life that I was living is not the life that I wanted to have, and that was the key, by the way. I think
it could take one event to make you realize that.
We had no money. I mean, my mom worked for a bit, and then she started drinking and did whatever. And I mean, I had I had dental care. Like I had some bad teeth and stuff like that. I was very self-conscious about stuff. Thank God, really good friends with dentists, so I got veneers for those of you that can see these. But it was in that point in my life that I realized that I want to be different. Like I looked around, and I don't want to say I was judgmental, but I looked around at everybody that I was around, and I didn't take an arrogant attitude to this, although a lot of people probably back then would have said I was a little bit arrogant. I really wanted to have a different lifestyle. And it's at that point in time, by the way, that I realized that my opportunities to go to college and all this other stuff were limited.
Yeah.
We didn't have that.
And that was kind of, like I said, I grew up with money, so college wasn't really an issue, but I hated school. I absolutely hated school.
Well, I did too. But I knew I needed it.
Correct.
I knew I needed it.
At the same time, my parents had spent thousands of dollars on travel. I mean, you know what travel sports costs now.
Oh, God.
So me being able to get a full scholarship to college kind of was my way of giving back to them, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't have to pay for anything. I mean, they had to pay. They gave me a first car to get down there, but that was it. My school was paid for, and I always told myself that if I went in the top rounds, that I would give all that money back to them they spent growing up. Unfortunately, I didn't go that high, but the signing bonus was pretty good. But they wouldn't have taken it.
As a parent, they wouldn't have taken it. They're looking at the accomplishments of what
they
you've
wouldn't
done.
Have taken it.
They're relishing in that. And it's funny, too, because I lived in Maryland, in the D.C. area at the time, Washington Capitals, obviously. And I had it was in a transit area. By the way, Sugar Ray Leonard lived down the street from us, so we were kind of in that Largo area. Went to Kettering Junior High and then started Largo High School when we moved. And I saw a lot of bad things. I saw a lot of people doing drugs. And I don't know, maybe I listened to too many of the commercials, your brain on drugs, whatever. It never appealed to me. I looked at it and said, if you do that, you're going to screw your life up. It's not the right way for you to go. I watched my mom drink herself into oblivion. I knew that I didn't want to do that. And that scared me too, because I'm like, and as a young kid, I'm thinking, do I have addictive tendencies?
Yeah.
Right. Where I've got to be careful on this. And the other side was school. And I'll tell you, the year before we moved, I was dorking off. I was working. I wasn't going to school. I wasn't paying attention to the stuff that I needed to do. And for all intents and purposes, my ninth grade year, I flunked out. Just so everybody knows. I'll just put it out there. Like, let's be clear. I think I passed 2 classes. And we moved to South Carolina, and we get down there. And this is like right at the end of the school year. We get down there. I had an aunt down there. And I had a little sister. So my mom had another child out of wedlock.
Okay.
I had a little sister, great, beautiful kid. And we got down there, and I started working because I wanted to. I started thinking about the pathway forward.
Yeah.
Right. So I was working. I had an uncle that did carpet laying, and I knew some of this stuff. And I just found any odd job and stuff that I could do to get money and get going. And my mom disappeared one week. Let that sink in. Right. I'm 15, 16
There's
years old.
Nothing that prepares you for that.
No, your mom disappears for a week, and you've got a 2-3-year-old with you that you're responsible for, you're taking care of. And I just was mortified and livid. And I won't go into the full family story, but when she came back, I left.
Yeah.
I walked out. I was like, this is so wrong and so bad. I've got to go.
Kind of the point in your life where you took over for yourself.
Yeah, and it's really weird because I did. And I had an aunt that lived down there. She had been divorced. I reached out to anybody and everybody could help me out. I was going to come back to DC. And he's like, hey, I've got my brother-in-law. He's got this restaurant. You can go there, you can work, and you can go to school, whatever. I lived in a pull-behind-a-car trailer. Had a pooper and no shower. Like, no lie. I had to walk across to another mobile home that his father or whatever lived in to take a shower, help shave. And, I did, kind of everything. And at 15 years old, I was living on my own and going to school. And when I started...
Putting yourself through school. You're taking you're still, even at 15, you're taking the responsibility to be like, I still need to go to school even though I'm on my own.
I took 2 Englishes and 2 maths my 10th grade year to catch up. It's so funny because people thought I was a bookworm. It wasn't that I was a bookworm. It was that I knew that I had to have this to go to the next level.
You didn't have a choice.
I didn't.
That you had to.
I didn't. And at a young age, it's like, the burden of the world now is on your shoulders. What's funny is I never felt that burden. I never worried. I was more scared of going back to the life that I was in than the life that I was living.
Well, even right now, it's you having the confidence in yourself to be like, I can do this.
Yeah. And that was the thing. It's like, I'm scared to death. Like, can I do this? I'm like, yeah, you can do it. Like, you can do it till you can't.
You need to use fear as a driving force. That's what a lot of people, people use fear as a reason to quit. Use it as a driving force.
It's got to be your driving force. So, long story, even longer. So I'm in school, and I get into a fight in school. And they find out that I have no parents or legal guardians. My mom moved back to DC at this time. No parents or legal guardians in the state of South Carolina. So guess what they do? They throw me out of school. Right?
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm
not call child services, nothing like that. It's just, you're not going to be here.
No, the school kicks me out because of my liability, and I have no parents or legal guardians in the state of South Carolina. After 2 weeks, you become a truant. So I'm like, shit, I don't know what to do. So I live in this like no light town, North South Carolina. And I go to we had a cop, Cecil Durham. And I go to this guy, Cecil Durham. I'm like, hey, I need help. Like, this is my situation of what's going on. And my God, the power of people. He calls this guy, Dallas Ball, who's an attorney, who had represented him on some other stuff and knew that, Dallas was a Southern Democrat. I'll just leave it at that. And Dallas comes and pulls me out of the restaurant one night. Ironically enough, the guy at the restaurant that I work with, he was his lawyer. And he said, tell me your story. So just like I'm doing now, I give him the long version. Like we sat in a car for like an hour and just talked. And he said, He said, okay. He goes, I got to head to the house. I said, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm like, okay. and I don't know what's going on. So he comes back and he's like, listen, he goes, I filed to become your guardian ad litem. I'm going to represent you in court. We're going to go to court. We're going to get you back in school. And I'm like, okay, done. So
don't say anything further. I'm down.
Right. Yeah. Down. Right. So, well, then I find out that and God bless, the people, my aunt's ex-husband's brother and his wife that, got me this job or whatever. And I was kind of like their kid slave as I looked at it back then, right? A little bit, but, never look a gift horse in the mouth. Like if it wasn't for them, I honestly, they played a huge part in my life. I was never thankful as a kid.
Some parent or some children that grow up being raised by their grandparents in a way.
It's just like, whatever. But I mean, but I walked out the door. So I asked for it. Right. So they gave me exactly what I wanted, but they had to be called into court to explain why they didn't have custody of me. That was very uncomfortable.
Does that put them in a risk factor? They're responsible kind of thing as an adult.
A little bit, yeah. And I'm mortified. And
what did I just do?
Yes. Yeah. What did I do to them? I felt awful. I felt guilty. lucky, right? I'm thinking, oh, they're kicking me out for sure. And then we had this truancy officer that was appointed over me, and I won't mention his name, but he's like, listen, we can do juvenile intake and put him in Boys Village. You'll be in a foster home next week. And I just was like, F that. I've been down that road. Like, I'm not doing it. And I never realized, and it was never disclosed, that this attorney had a plan for me. And he went through this entire process and proceedings, and this judge, Joe Board, looks at me and goes, what do you want to do? And I said, listen, I want to go to school. I'm focused on school. I'm getting good grades. You can check. I haven't missed a day of school, since I've been down here. I want to get through school, and I'm going to the Army. Right.
So military was the plan.
My pathway.
It wasn't like nothing else. Like go join the military, like a lot of stories that you hear. It was, this is what you wanted to do.
Yes. I wanted to go jump out of airplanes and eat snakes and do stupid shit. Right. But honestly, it was a pathway for me. So it was a pathway potentially to go to college. And I'll tell you point blank, so you all know, because there's probably a kid out there that can relate to this. I didn't see myself as college material.
Yeah.
I
was the same. I was the same way. The only reason I was going to school was for baseball.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't care about the education side of it. And then I took some classes that were like really got me into American history and a lot of subjects like that. And it was still didn't pay attention in school because of baseball. But my life now is, if you ask my wife, if I'm laying before bed and she's taking a shower and she comes out of the bathroom, I'm watching something like Neil deGrasse Tyson on the Galaxy,
or reading.
Always learning about the most random stuff that will never pop up again until you cross paths with somebody, and you're like, how do you know that?
I read tax law. I don't laugh. My wife laughs, but I read tax law when I lay in bed at night. That's a whole other story.
I'm a big space and history fan, so it's like World War II fighters and stuff like that.
I'm everything. I'm like all over the map. So this judge is, asked me what I want to do, and I'm like, I just want to go to school. And he just sits back in his chair. And the gravity of the situation doesn't sink in because you see life through your own eyes.
Most kids don't want to go to school.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. He goes, I'll be damned. And he says that, it's on the record. He goes, I'll be damned. He goes, I sit behind this chair in this robe every single day, and I got kids that come in here that want to go be small engine repair mechanics down the street at their brother's shop or whatever, and they don't want to go to school. And I'll be damned if I have a kid sitting in front of me who wants to go to school and I can't figure it out. And he looks at Dallas and he goes, Dallas, you're his guardian ad litem. Can you ensure that he has transportation, food, whatever is needed to get him there? And Dallas is like, I got it covered. I got it covered. And he's like, okay, ward of the court, custody of the state. I'm going to put a representative over you. If you need food stamps or whatever, we'll do that, blah, blah, blah. I don't want you to have to work to go to school, blah, 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 blah. He just slams his gavel. And I'm like, okay, what does all that legal jumbo jargon mean?
So he slams the gavel. What does that do with the family members that were there that had to testify why they weren't?
Off the hook. Right.
That's outstanding.
Off the hook, right? And I apologize profusely to them. Not very understanding people, by the way. I'll tell you that. But you can't look a gift horse in the mouth. Like, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be in the situation. So they had a role to play in the story of Frank.
It's all part of
the chapter in the book.
That ladder climb.
Right. It's a chapter in the book on the way right to the ladder. So I end up. It's so funny. I'm still in contact with my mom. So I end up, I meet this guy, Ben Stepp and Warren O'Malley, that were basically, they worked in the solicitor's office. And my God, they came by, like once a week checking on me. And this tells you the power of people. I mean, people really, really care about other people. And that's the thing that, if I do anything, give back, right? So I go home, and this is had to be Christmas of 82, 83, I don't remember. But I go home, I say go home, I was at home. I went to see my mom in D.C. So I go stay with her and see my little sister, and it's a shit show. I'll tell you that. I took a train up there, took an Amtrak train, paid for a ticket, go up there.
Going back to the same kind of alcoholism and
worse.
Like that? Oh, worse.
Worse. Worse. And, I'm sure people want to know something.
I'm sure, like, even listeners now somebody's going to relate to this story. There are a lot of, especially down here in the South, that I've noticed just coming from Canada down here. There's a lot of stories like this.
It was, so little sister kind of pawned off kind of situation with me. Mom is working at a Chinese restaurant up there and, drinking like crazy. And I go there, they have like a happy birthday to me party for being there, blah, 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 blah. And we end up by going to this couple's place afterwards. They put Clockwork Orange on and start snorting coke in front of me. And at the point where
you just went through all of this to go through the court system to get back into school on your own.
Right, on my own. So I'm watching, they're, snorting cocaine off of this, their girl's ass or whatever. But not really. But I mean, that's about to happen. And I just was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And they don't even know. I walk out the door. Snowstorm, by the way, in DC at this time. I don't remember which year it was. But I walk out the door. I hailed a taxi. I go back to her apartment. I get in because there's somebody there babysitting my sister. I get all my shit and I go to the train station and I went home. I didn't see my mother again until I graduated high school. And I knew that I was done. Now my biggest priority was, oh shit, my sister.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure I'll send her this. She'll listen to it. You know, my biggest thing then was, okay, great. You're thinking about yourself. What about your sister?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of people that grow up in these types of situations that's how they grew up. That's their normal.
Right.
So they don't know that there's another way out.
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, I have no idea what the hell inspired me to do what I did, but I'm so glad that I did. So I go back. And by the way, I worked I won't say the company because I don't want to get them in trouble, but I worked at a clothing mill. And basically I was doffing cloth, right? So I was basically taking cloth and putting on spindle reels that they would use to make clothing. And this is, back in the early 80s, and the textile industry moved to, offshore, and all those jobs went away. And I was working third shift and going to school. Well, I lost my job. I come back from Christmas, and evidently Ben Stepp knew about this already. Ben Stepp shows up, pack your shit, you're moving into my house. And this guy, a lawyer.
So you had a lot of people in your life that are like, I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
Like just come with me.
I had friends in high school that had no idea that I lived on my own, that all this stuff was going on until this, and they always say good news you never hear about, bad news travels like wildfire. Yeah. When I finally got back to school, like I'm walking and like people are, it's like the whispering in the air as I'm walking by, and I'm like, good God, what did I do? Yeah. Right. And nobody knew me. I mean, I honestly tried to fly under the radar. All I wanted to do was lay low, which was not like me, by the way, but I wanted to lay low and get through all of this.
Those that know you, as long as I've known you, you've never been like that.
No. And I literally was. I mean, I didn't want to be, found out on all this stuff. So I'm just trying to, blend into the shadows, that everybody knew who I was. And then I had, people that I studied on my own, but people that knew me from the restaurant that had come by or whatever, and their parents were like, come live with us, come do it. I mean, I had so many people just wanting me to come live with them, be a part of their family. It's crazy. And there's still a lot of them are lifelong friends today, that I know. You don't lose contact with people like that. So anyways, Dallas Ball comes by, one night and picks me up, and he goes, hey, I want you to come have dinner with my family. And I did. And, he literally told me, he's like, listen, we want you to come live with us. And I went to school with his sister, or with my sister, his daughter.
This was middle high school?
I'm in my...
Or graduation, after graduation.
I'm in my junior year now, so I'm in 11th grade. So I lived on my own for a bit. So I'm in my beginning of junior year, I think. I have to go back and look at this. I wasn't 17 yet.
I was about to say, that's going to be a big change for 16, 17.
Yeah. And he's like, want us to come live with us. And by the way, commonality between you and I, he's a lawyer, right? Yeah. So I go to live with this lawyer family on 400 acres in this 10,000 square foot mansion.
That's a big change from where you grew up.
Yeah. And you're just like, holy shit. First thing you do is take me out and buy me clothes.
Well, I'm not going to lie. You've been really successful in your life, and me driving up to your driveway with a big B on the gate kind of open your eyes from, because I knew your story before we started this. I kind of knew the background, and it's kind of an eye opener, like from where you started to where you're at now, in this beautiful home and all your cars. It's pretty inspirational.
It's scary to think about, because if you look around, like I built all of this, right? I mean, everything in here. My wife always says, look at that plastic fork. That's money that you spent.
Is that one of those things where do you have those moments still where you just sit back and be like, we made this happen?
Sometimes. I think more in my 40s. I'm 58 in a couple of weeks. More so in my 40s. As I've gotten older, you hit an equilibrium point. Thank God, right? Yeah. You hit an equilibrium point, but it's not a lazy point. So you don't become complacent. By the way, military, like we'll talk about the flying and everything.
I kind of use that as a buzzword to kind of get people interested with the attack helicopters and stuff like that. But you're much more than that. I mean, I didn't know you then, so I've known you in your current life, and but that's always an interesting
funny
step.
Story. So we started Supercar Birthdays for Kids. The March 14th, my son had a birthday, turning 14 years old, and we couldn't do a birthday party for him.
Yeah.
And I had this epiphany, right? And we did Supercar Birthdays for Kids, and I got to know all these kids in the community. We've got 2 charities that we still support and do stuff with, and I made a lot of friends through it. And we got rid of the R8. And one of the kids goes, "You can't get rid of the R8. It defines you."
Yeah.
And I didn't say it to him, right? But the first thing that went through my head, and an arrogant response, right, was that nothing defines me.
Yeah.
Right? No single event in my life, ever defines who I am, right? Until I die. Right. That'd be my defining moment. Oh, he's dead now. He's gone.
Well, that's how I knew you for the longest time, was the Halo wrapped R8.
Yeah.
When I had to go describe who I was meeting or who we were going to see, even Hope, because she didn't meet you when I washed the car the first time. I was like, the guy with the Halo R8.
Yeah. Well, and then we changed the wrap on it. We did the LMS. Thank God to APR. We did the LMS wrap on it, but. It's funny because when I look back on the childhood and everything, and I went in the Army, everything worked out. I went in the Army. I'll just tell everybody, because I know there's people that are going to be out there. So, we were fortunate. My cousins, they finally adopted me, and my dad said I needed a place to call home, and then I go in the Army, go through basic AIT jump school.
This is where the name change came in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they adopted me in November.
Completely forgot about this. I appreciate it.
So they best cappuccino I think I've ever made, by the way. I made that for you this morning. They adopt me. By the way, it was, that's my family. Truth be known, they did a very good job.
You have people in your life, even if you're not blood related, that's like your family. I mean,
I
have very few friends. There are very few people in the world, but they might as well live with us. Like they're family to us.
It's funny because my wife is Ukrainian, by the way. She grew up in the prior Soviet Union. If you met her here, she speaks perfect English. Musician, so she has an ear for it. So she did it on purpose. But I've always my brother. My wife doesn't comprehend that.
Yeah.
Right? It's not their culture, and she's like, they're not family. What are you talking about? And what she doesn't realize is, I have aunts and uncles that are blood. But everybody else in my family,
they're further from family than anybody else. Yeah.
Well, it's honestly, it's true. It's unfortunate, but it's true. But my family, at the age of 15, when all of this stuff happened, I was my only family. Everybody else in my life, with the exception of my sister, who I didn't, even then didn't talk to for years, and we'll get into that. I had only the family members that were friends. I didn't have blood family.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard for people to understand. Key point though, I want to pull this out. I'm going to talk about myself for just a minute here. I get in the Army.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
We're hearing your story, so it's okay.
This is not a fun chapter to talk about, but it's a true chapter. So we get in the Army. My adoption's done. We found out my cousins through my adoption can't have kids. They adopt my sister. We get my sister from my mom, which was a big thing for me. I wanted her to have a better life.
You wanted her to get out of that life.
I did.
Yeah.
I really, and here's the thing is my mom always wanted another, girl and blah, 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 because the child that died before me, my older sister. And I felt so guilty on, that's all she ever wanted in her life. That's all she talked about. And that one thing in life, I played a part in taking it away from her. So get in the Army. She's calling me. All this stuff's going on. I don't drink. Guess what I did? I took a bottle of pills. I wanted to walk off the earth. No lie. I literally.
And I think again, with successful people, there's always one moment like this where you feel like there's nothing else you can do. You just feel absolutely deflated.
Yeah, I get a little emotional when I talk about this, but I honestly at that point in time thought I wanted to walk off the earth.
This was my mindset after baseball when I got released. It was.
You can relate.
I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I just the guilt of all of it. I felt like, did I do the right thing? Did I ruin this kid's life? Did I ruin her life? What is my life? And just in a stupid moment, I took a bottle of pills and wrote a note and said, I can't do this. And roommate was gone for the weekend. So roommate had left something in the room. Somebody comes in a room and finds me. Probably 3 hours into this, right to the ER. I'm in the Army. They take that shit serious, by the way. It's like, yeah, okay, you're not fucking fit. You're getting out of here. Excuse my French, by the way. It's a little bit of Army there.
Yeah, this is military conversation.
Little bit of Army there. So, that's, the F word is a noun, verb, pronoun, adjective.
It is in my shop
sentence.
too. If you hung around me more than 15 minutes, I curse. It's just how it is.
So sorry for those if I offend anybody, but
we'll put a warning up there on the beginning of the episode.
Here's the important takeaway though. People. I had a group of people rally around me. They could have kicked me out of the Army. Like literally. My commander came and saw me in the hospital. He's like, dude, what the fuck? Right? My platoon sergeant, what the fuck? My squad leader, my team leader, what the fuck? Right? You like never saw this coming with you. What is going on? And I just, I broke down and lost it. And I said, look, I'm dealing with carrying some shit I just can't deal with. Right? got me into counseling, built me up. Let me tell you, the changing moment, we're going to talk about this, because the changing moment, defining moment started at 15 when I left home. The adulting moment started when I did that. And I'm not telling anybody to do that ever, right? Because too many kids have done it succeed.
You often hear stories about people. So a lot of people jump off the Golden Gate, people that try to commit suicide and survive the fall, and they even said halfway down, instant regret.
Didn't want to do it, right? And I think in the moment I did. But then I came out of it and I realized the stupidity of it all. And I had this group of people that rallied around me and just, said, listen, we got you. Family, right? Military family.
That's all it really takes. Family. Not even family. Is if somebody telling you, I got you.
This was
that's
family.
all you need.
This was military family. This is, we got you and you've got this. And you've got this is probably had more meaning than we've got you, because it was tough love. I mean, it wasn't like, sympathy, this guy tried to commit suicide, whatever, blah, 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 blah. No, it was like, all right, get your fucking shit in order, right? You're coming out of here. All right, let's go. Let's go. Smart people, by the way. Smart people. Young people.
People telling you that, like, you got this. That's kind of this podcast I've been talked about with Hope for a very long time. And she was like, if you're going to do it. But don't half-ass it.
Right, you've got this.
Yeah.
That was a turning moment for me. And I was in a high-speed, low-drag unit in the 82nd, not anything really crazy. But that's the point. They're like, and I had people grab me and say, listen, we're going to focus. You're going to learn this. You're going to focus. You're going to learn this. You're going to become the best you that you can be. And by the way, that's what the military and these high-speed units do. They want you to be the best of the best. They want to set a standard and you to overachieve it all the time. And that was the point of that, is coming out of that. They focused on that, on getting me to a level, and I built a confidence in myself that I didn't understand that I had. Truth be known, right? Stupid shit. You have guard duty. There's going to be...
I feel like that's part of their training and how they designed everything, is they pull those traits out of you through their training processes.
Yeah, when the mind can conceive, the body will precede, right? That was the saying. And you can overachieve on anything that you set your mind to overachieving. And that's what I focused on. And it wasn't that I focused on, it was people focused on me to get that out of me. And I realized at that point in time, like I was talking about this with you earlier, one of the coolest things that you can do is unleash the power of people. Yeah. Not just yourself, right? And I will say that I became very narcissistic through this, right? You get focused on you so much, it becomes me, and you're doing shit. And then the military snaps you back in line because you're going to be a leader, right? So they're like, okay, you're going to be a Spec 4 all your life, or you're going to become an NCO. So then they send you to the primary leadership development course, and you learn about the importance of, it's not about you. Kind
of leadership classes that go through.
Yeah, and you start to learn, it's like, it's not about you, right? You're like, what do you mean it's not about me? It's been all about me. They're like, no, it's not about you.
If anybody listening that doesn't think that they can lead something or start a business or do whatever you want to do to be more successful than where you're at, YouTube and the internet has a bunch of information now that you didn't have access to at this point. They have leadership classes that you can watch for free on YouTube.
Most important thing I think that I started to gain out of that was self-awareness, right? And I've had periods in my life where I get too complacent. I'm not mindful about things that I'm doing, or I've said shit or whatever. And I used to mess with people online. I stopped doing that. But
I still do it occasionally. I have that reputation back home.
I had all these military buds, and I got like civilian friends. They didn't understand it, and then it's like we'd have knockdown dragouts. People look at it and go, "He's an asshole," and I'm like, "That's my brother, right? He's my brother, right?"
Yeah.
So we worked through that. But anyways, I think that was those defining moments of where you start to realize that anything that you want to do, you can achieve. So then rotate, go to Germany, end up in Italy, and somebody goes through and says, "Hey, who wants to go to college?" And I'm like, and this was one of those things where I'm scared to death, right? But we had some downtime because we're always on deployment cycles. We're always in training cycles. We had some downtime, and they're like, "Hey, during this, you can get out of guard duty if you go take some college courses, right?"
I'm in,
right? So, and not really. You still full of guard duty. You just study on guard duty. So I took a couple of college courses, mostly around computer science, because they intrigued me. But I figured, if you're going to do something, look at computers, right? Because that's the new age of things where they're going, and this is the mid '80s. And if you can learn that, you can learn anything. And so I really I overshot, right?
Yeah,
I aced it. I took like 4 classes. I aced it. I learned the politics of making sure you get to know your professors, right? I learned how to play the politics of that a little bit to be able to learn what I needed to learn to pass the test, but also to learn.
Yeah.
And it gave me confidence. So then by the way, true story, I applied to flight school because I want to fly. I knew.
You did want to fly. It wasn't like just, oh, that's a cool opportunity.
I was the 82nd. I go to Alaska, go to NWTC, to the Northern Warfare Training Course, the instructor course, come back 4 days later, go to Panama. So I go from one extreme environment to the other, get immersion foot. And, we're down there in the jungle and everything else. I see this little OH-58 come flying in, skirt across the football field. Tail rotor exposed, by the way, for you old guys out there. And I looked at it and said, I'm going to fucking fly one of those one day. I'm gonna.
So it's funny that we talked about this because a couple months ago, I didn't know you flew helicopters in the military until you posted something on your Facebook page. And I was like, oh, no way. That's something I've always wanted to do and never had the time to.
So go do it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Hope's doing now.
Just do it.
Is just do it. Is finding a flight school. Then I've looked into it and kind of fixed wing is a little easier to start out with.
Start fixed wing.
Yeah.
Get fixed wing. Get your fixed wing license to do a rotary add-on. That's what I did.
I started my skydive, my free fall license last year.
Nice. AFF.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
And that's something that I didn't think I would really enjoy, but now it's another getaway. Like Hope thinks I'm crazy. She thinks I'm crazy. Yeah, but she said she will never jump unless I get into an instructor and she can tandem with me, and then she'll jump. So that's kind of my driving force to get her to be able to push her out of a plane. That's my
cool
next
thing.
goal.
It's a cool thing. It's
if you've never jumped out of a plane, it doesn't feel like you're falling for those that are scared to do it.
By the way, if you're a control freak, best thing in the world, go jump out of an airplane because you're not always in control and everything that's going on. So I see that 58 and I'm like, I'm flying one day, right? So long story, we're long storying here. I'm in Italy. I put together a flight packet. I take the ASVAB and all this other stuff, ace it, put it in, and I don't get picked up. So I submit another packet. Don't get picked up. Don't get any response back, right?
Well, that's a lot. Another lesson learned is that you can do everything right, and you may just get passed up.
People.
Be persistent.
It's people. I'll tell you, it's people. So we're getting ready to rotate back to the States. So I'm coming back, and I was going to be a drill instructor at Fort Jackson, and I was an E5, and I'm walking with somebody talking, and I see my platoon sergeant. This guy, Sergeant Whitmore. Sergeant Whitmore drove a moped. And can I tell you, it didn't dawn on me while I was there that he drove a moped because he probably had several DUIs, and that's the only thing he could drive.
The only thing he could do it.
Didn't dawn on me, right? Guy was probably a raging alcoholic. Feel sorry for you, Fred. Anyways, so I'm walking, and I'm talking to somebody, and he goes, balls, because as we call me, he goes, balls, you'll never fly, right? And what I realized is he had denied my flight packet. And by the way, I mean, I was.
Is this somebody that you had
leadership
issues with, or just kind of the latter?
I didn't realize that I did, right? But evidently there was. I think it's professional jealousy a little bit. Some of the guys.
Nothing to do with the pill incident or anything like that.
No, he didn't know. Yeah. I was in a different unit.
Okay.
So I'm in a different unit. I'm in senior medical records. They don't look at your medical files. So in a different unit, not a big deal. So, and I figure out that, like, man, this guy's been blocking my packets. And I don't know why, because, like, I went to the E5 board, fucking max it. I did everything you're supposed to do.
Everything you're supposed to do, and you did them exceptionally well.
All of them. And by the way, so did my peers, right? So did my peers. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go to Jackson, and I get out. I have 2 guys from Oregon, not judging you. They claim that they came into the buddy program. They claim they were closer buddies than they should have been back in the don't ask, don't tell days, right? So we have to process them out. So I'm at the MEP Center at Fort Jackson processing them out, and this big black captain walks over and goes, "Hey, Drill, how'd you like to go to college?" And I'm looking at him like, yeah, like it's like want a Hershey bar kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, sir. He's like, nah, seriously, you're not doing anything right now. Come fill out a packet. So I do. And no shit, I get picked up to go to college on green and gold, chapter 16, get chaptered out of the Army, and I end up at the University of South Carolina on full scholarship. Grew up a Clemson fan. Let that sink in for just a minute.
And I'd say for somebody that kind of put yourself through high school and the experiences that you had as a teenager, getting something where you're not financially responsible and you had that opportunity to go to school was a big step.
It was better than that. So I get a full ride. They frock you. So I was an E6 at the time, so they make you an E5. They pay you. So they're paying for part of your living expenses and everything on this green to gold program. Plus I had chapter 32 VEEP. I was getting $740 some odd a month in finances coming in from the military as well, because I was able to. Plus I had a full scholarship. All my tuition was paid for. The only thing I had to pay for was books and living. I was living high on the hog. I was doing great, but I didn't sit on my ass. I got into a reserve drill sergeant unit right there at Fort Jackson. I meet this guy, Dave Dudley, amazing guy, by the way, true war hero. Dave's like, hey, Meat, why don't you come dig ditches with me? I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, you seem so high speed, low drag. Why don't you come out here and dig ditches with me? He had an irrigation landscaping company. So I go work with Dave, and I'm going to college and working for him. He's paying me like $8 an hour. Back in the day, it's a lot of money. Plus I'm making all this other money on the side, right? So
$8 an hour, and they're still paying people that today.
Yeah,
which is
I mean, I was a
unbelievable
college kid, and it's funny because it was I looked at it as an experience more than a job.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that's he was a captain in this reserve unit. I'm a cadet basically now because I'm in the reserve unit as a cadet. I think I was a reserve drill for a bit, then became a cadet, and then he helped other people. Mark Stevens and him helped move me into a reserve aviation unit because I wanted to fly. So anyways, I go to work for this guy, and he taught me the ropes on his business, which was really cool. I showed up and I'm wearing, the Army. Back in the day, we wore these like mustard colored pants. I think we swapped over to gray and black. So I show up my Army shit. And he's like, "What are you doing?" So he takes me out. He gets me like these like designer
shorts.
Like we wore OPs when I was a kid. It was something like like an OP or whatever. And he's driving this battleship gray Jeep. It was Nardo gray before Nardo gray was cool. That's how far ahead Dave was.
I call that gloss primer.
It was
being
gloss primer.
Being in the detail industry,
it's beautiful, beautiful. He let me drive it. Just like the guy was a little bit older than me, but adopted me like his son. And he called me Meat, by the way. So I worked with this guy for a while, and he taught me the ropes on his business. But what was more important was the insight of business. And he did that. He got hired by a chemicals company and moved. And he's like, "Here's the business." I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
He's like, "You know how to price the stuff. You know how to do it. You know how to buy. You know where to buy from. Here, pay me 20% of the jobs we have going on here. Do whatever." And again, this God, people, right? You just look at this and you go, "How does God put these people in your life?"
Hope and I talk about this a lot because we have a lot of employees that come and go. We kind of teach them the ropes. We teach them from scratch, if they're polishing paint correction. They leave, they try to start their own business. It happens all the time.
Right.
And being able to do something is one thing. Being able to run a business,
totally different.
Completely different. And they learn it pretty fast.
I read tax law at night. Right? I mean, you got to really have your mind around you. So anyway, and that's, Dave kind of gave me that insight, blah, blah, blah. And I mean that. I wanted to make sure I put Dave out there because Dave's a milestone in my life. So it's Ben Stepp, Dallas Ball, a lot of these people. So I go back in the Army, go to flight school. And by the way, and
you weren't blacklisted from it when you got back. It was all right. You're going to fly.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, I did a whole bunch of stuff to get myself in there. I read military regulations. By the way, I will tell you, the military tells you how to do everything in black and white. It's listed in every single regulation. All you have to do is read the reg. And most people don't read the regs. So when you're smart, it's like, I don't hate these people, right? They get pulled over by the cops. They rolled my window up. I'm not allowed to. You want to see my ID? I'm not that guy. But I did read the manuals, right? RTFM. And
you know what you're talking about.
I knew what I was talking about.
And if you're the smartest guy in the room, it makes a difference.
I put my packet. I was never always the smartest guy in the room. I was the smartest in my one little area, right? But I put my packet together, and then I pushed it, and I pushed it, and I pushed it, and I pushed it, and I pushed it. And when they go through your branch selection, I get qualified aviation, and I get picked up. Hey, I'm going to flight school. I got picked up early. It was my last semester, and I get the call. We have an open flight slot. Can you come? Yeah, so I disenroll. University of South Carolina is totally cool with it. Disenroll. Bam, and I take off and I go to flight school.
It's one of those he's got this opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked at it like this. I mean, people write books about going to this. It's $1 million education or more and the investment they're making in you. I'm going. So off I go to flight school. All that was great. Have a helicopter crash in flight school, lose an engine. There was 6 crashes in 5 months, 3 fatalities. We were the second to last crash that happened. It was down for a bit. And it hurt my back pretty good, and they grounded the helicopters. I go to work for the director of combat developments, who's a 2-star there. By the way, in college, I majored in accounting. I ended up by working for this little bitty computer company making computers, which literally I learned how to make computers in college, making clones and all this other stuff in the mid 80s. And that set my career on fire later on. We'll get there. So this is how it happens. The director of combat developments somebody finds out I have computer skills, so I go there. I was a Novell CNE, did that in college. Wasn't a big deal back then. They're running a Novell secure network, and I go in and rebuild the network. And he's like, how long is this job going to take? I'm like, probably 2 days. And he goes, you're interesting.
We've been bouncing around some different stuff that you've done, and I see this is
wild.
I'm learning this right now. This is new to me.
It's
I haven't
cool
heard
though.
This. Yeah,
but every one of these is opportunities though.
But that's the thing. So you wouldn't have got this opportunity if you didn't go through what you just went through before.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the progression of why we're here talking right now is it takes a lot to get to where you want to go, and you don't know what path it's going to take.
It's all about the journey.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the destination. We all know it's
Yeah.
pre-planned. You're going to die, just to tell you right now, but it's about the journey on how you get there. So I tell this two-star, I'm like, yeah, it's like a 2-day job. And he's like, no, you're an interesting person. You drink bourbon? I'm like, yes, sir. I'm a young lieutenant. He's like, come in my office. So he fires up a bourbon. He goes, tell me about Frank. So my life story comes out again. We go through all this, and he goes, why are you in the Army? Swear to God. I got a 2-star. I won't say his name. You can probably look it up. He's why are you in the Army? And I said, I'm a lifer. This is what I want to do. And he goes, you're an idiot. And I go, what? And he goes, I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. He said, but you could get out right now and go work for any one of the companies that we have on post here he goes, we hired a company to come in and do what you just did in 2 hours. They've been in here for 3 weeks trying to work with this.
It's something that you're doing that you enjoy. And when passion is when passion is related to what you're doing, there's nothing else. It's kind of like with me in my shop is if I hated doing what I'm doing, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
I wouldn't be doing the 25 hours a day and staying up countless nights. It's a passion. Without it,
we're going to get to that word, by the way, because I think, not everybody is fortunate enough to be able to take the opportunities presented to them and smart enough to be able to find something that you truly can get passionate about, make money on.
Well, a lot of people don't know what that passion could be. They think they like something, and they go to do it, and it's like, oh,
this
no.
sucks. Well, but by the way, that's why you do it while you're young.
Yeah.
I'm telling my son right now, he's working for a company. I'm like, listen, dude, you should go try and start your own business. You got some money in the bank. You could do it part-time, finagle around on something, find something that interests you and see if you can
Just try it.
See if you can turn your vocation, right? The things that you enjoy, if you can take your passion and turn it into that vocation that provides for you. That's kind of the key.
And the saying's true. If you enjoy what you do, you won't work a day in your life.
You won't.
As cliche as that is, it's
you will still work.
You will.
You will.
You're gonna have tough days. Everybody's gonna have tough days.
Right.
It's not gonna be peaches and cream through the entire career, but it's there. It doesn't feel like work when you go, and that's why I'm there all the time. My wife hates it because she doesn't have the same passion for detailing as I do, but she sees my passion in it, which kind of makes it okay. But missing family is a tough one on there.
Being away from family is hard. I had a lot of that, and those only regrets that I have in life is being away from family. So he has this conversation with me, and I'm an RA commission, like 6 years of active duty requirement. And by the way, this conversation happens over the course of a couple of weeks because he's like, you're staying here. I'm calling. And he's got control of everything. He's like, you're going to be working for me. I'm like, okay. So and basically I drank bourbon with the guy.
And that's part of the military thing is that you got to do what you're told too. You don't have a choice about it.
No, but yes and no. If you read the regs, yes and no. I mean, you learn in life how to maneuver. What's another word for maneuver? Manipulate, right? You learn how to manipulate your way through situations.
And if you say no, it could hinder another opportunity in the future.
I probably could have said no, but it was one of those things where you didn't want to say no.
Yeah.
Like, right? You're hanging out with a 2-star, right? And by the way, no one ever really knew that. Everybody, I was going there secure, like it's secure part post. Like,
just you and him.
There's people they're coming in and out. There's people in there, but not people you see on a regular basis because the director of combat developments was there. They're doing all.
They
the
don't
planning.
know who you are.
Right. And I'm badged. I have security clearance. I'm badged. I'm in there. And he comes and he talks to me one day and he's like, "Listen, where's your career going to go? Like, are you going to stay in the military?" And I'm like, "That's what I planned on." And he's like, "Why don't you get out and do this technology stuff?" And I'm like, "I never really thought about it." Honestly, like I did it in college. It was cool. He's like, you're really good at it. And he's like, companies pay a lot of money to do that stuff. So he talks me in to talking to Loral Aerospace, BDM, a few other companies. And he calls me, he goes, listen, he goes, I think it was Graham Rudman's Hollings. I don't remember what the act was. He goes, there's an act that's coming down right now that's coming through Congress. And he goes, I can convert your active duty requirement to a reserve requirement. You're going to have to do your other, years in a reserve or guard unit. And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, what do you want to fly? And I go, Cobras. and he goes, what if I get you in a Cobra unit? I'm like, why are you doing this for me? And he's like,
is that kind of the same situation as like the Apache is the biggest thing right now?
well, Apache was big then.
Yeah.
I'm weird. I
You just want something different.
No, I just, you know what you like, right? It's
Yeah.
like me and alphas, right? People are like, why do you like those rusty pieces of shit? Well, because I like alphas, right? That's just who I am. If I was going to fly something, Vietnam era helicopters always appealed to me. You could fly the new age shit. And I flew a C-Knight Cobra. So long story short, he makes a phone call to Tennessee, talks to them about me, gets me a Tennessee card before I'm even done with all the stuff that's there. Then he makes a couple other phone calls, and I start interviewing. And I interviewed with Walmart, by the way. I could have had a really cool job at Walmart in technology. That's a long story. I would have been a pig farmer too. I loved it out there. I like rural country. I'm not a big city guy, unless I'm in Europe and I'm a big city guy. So anyways, long story short, I get out, go to work for a defense contractor. And he gets me into, I'm in this reserve aviation unit. He gets me pulled out of that after I graduate flight school. And I get to go fly Cobras, and I'm working for a defense contractor that's very liberal about military commitments, right? Because I go to a Cobra transition course while I'm working there, no big deal, right? You take 3 months off, go do that. You come back and you go work for them. So I'm doing that, working for this defense contractor, did a whole bunch of really cool stuff. I end up in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm flying for the Guard in Tennessee, flying back and forth. And, the company that I'm working for finishes a project, and I end up by getting hired by Bell South and I made a little bit of name for myself up and coming still in there. Very, very, very young in corporate technology. Like I didn't know it, didn't understand it. I was a small, business Army guy, right? Working with all these Army vets that were older Romos, retired guys, whatever, and took care of me. And I made an impression on this one guy that left and went to this technology company here based in Atlanta, and they wanted to build I did project management, program management. They wanted to build a PMO, program management office. So I got hired to go do that and did. And this is where you're just, right now I'm floating through life, right? I do all this cool shit and work and everything gets a little bit boring. Started racing cars.
I was about to say, it's a weird word for a attack helicopter pilot. Is life getting a little bit boring?
No, I'm doing that. So I do that. I go to the instructor pilot course. Life is going well, right? I'm full of myself again, by the way. I become a little bit narcissistic. Our company gets acquired, and we actually merged with this one company. And long story short, I won't use names in this because I don't know that they would appreciate it. But I had some really cool people with this company that I work for. We go out to Century City out in California. And, we're doing this whole merger thing, a big company, $12.5 billion company, like huge company. And I had done some pretty good things there, made a name for myself, and kind of the C-levels knew me a bit. And we're out there, and this guy
is this kind of the uptick to where we're at right now?
Yeah,
you went from military to what you're doing now.
Major uptick. So I'm doing project and program management. I'm making over $100,000 a year, but I'm straight line income and bonus, right? So this guy that runs sales comes up to me, he goes, Boston accent, he goes, "Hey Frank, what the fuck are you doing over there doing that? You need to be in sales. You need to come fucking work for me in sales." I'm like, "I'd starve." Which I didn't think I'd starve, right? I kind of manipulated the conversation a little bit too, so I'm not saying his name. He's like, "I ain't gonna fucking starve. You sell yourselves all day long, right? You got this." So sorry about my Boston accent, folks. So I go to work for him, and this is 1998, right? So 1998, I move into sales, and all the customers that I had worked with, which were big, MCI WorldCom, State of Georgia, Georgia Power, Bell South, all these are companies that I'd worked with through my project management days. Well, I ended up by taking them over as the sales rep for my line of business. And this is 1998. Do you know what happened in 1999? Y2K.
I don't know.
The world was going to end.
I was 11, so
the world was going to end. We had Y2K. Every computer system was going to shut down.
Oh yeah.
And I have this saying: I'd rather be lucky than smart. I listen a lot. Even when it seems like I'm not listening, I'm inquisitive. And I'd realized our line of business had a capability to go out and like inventory machines for configurations and stuff. And I end up on this project. I'll just talk state of Georgia because they're, it is what it is. I ended up by working with state of Georgia. And I'll never forget we're working on this application rewrite project. And on this application rewrite project that we're doing, I asked a stupid question.
I didn't know there were such things as stupid questions.
Are your machines compliant for client server applications you're going to roll out, right? Meaning they're about to go from green screens and all the stuff that they're doing. Can the machines, are they Y2K compatible, right? The end user machines, by the way, there's like 30,000 or whatever it was out there. And are they able to actually accept with the amount of memory, hard drive, disk space, everything, the applications they're rewriting to put on it? And CIO, super good guy at the time. He's like, who the F are you? Get in my office. He's like, and he looks at me and goes, what are you talking about? Right. And I said, did anybody ever think to go back and look to see if the machines are Y2K compliant? Because they're doing all the server rewrites. They're going to a client server application as opposed to green screens off of a big mainframe. And that was kind of the learning point in my career. And I did that with all the other customers that we had out there, MCI, WorldCom, Bell South, all of that. And that's my first year of sales, by the way. It was a good year. Bought an airplane that year, by the way, just so you know. And you don't really realize it until the commission checks start coming in, right? And you see a commission check and you're like, wow, I used to make that in a year.
Well, so very similar experience playing minor league baseball when you have like big leaguers come down and do rehab starts in the minor leagues, and you get your check every 2 weeks. They just sit in your locker. It's not like direct deposit or anything. You see, all right, well, I made $1,200. You look over here, the big leaguer that just came down, he's got $300,000 for a 2 week check, and you're just like, whoa, what do you do with that?
Yeah. Well, and that's a wake up moment, right? So it's one of those things where like, whoa. And again, we start a new chapter, right? So I move into sales, and it's funny because I've had, if you know me, you know me. I have customers that I've had since day one that are still lifelong friends.
Yep.
That know like.
I'm a firm believer that you'll turn a customer into a friend before you turn a friend into a customer.
I'm a pick on one right now. He's a car guy. Not 10 years or so ago, I went out, and it's so funny. One of our reps is like, "Hey, I need you to go out and meet with my customer on some stuff that's going on." And I just, they need to meet you. You're going to be involved in this stuff. I'm like, okay, I go out there. And by the way, they're talking, I worked at Cisco 5.5 years. We won't talk about all that, but great company. I go out there and meet with these folks. I'm not briefed. They're talking about stuff that's non-disclosure that they're looking at. So Cisco technology, I'm long gone from Cisco, running a Cisco practice at another company. And they're talking about stuff I don't know about. I look like shit. And the one guy calls her up, he goes, don't ever bring that used car sales guy back here again. And the guy's a lifelong best friend now, by the way. No lies, family. I think, when you first meet me, and that's why, it's you either like me or you don't. What you see is what you get, right?
And that's I like open personalities. Yeah. I don't like people being closed off. Just coming up through professional sports, you get those guys that the 1%ers that are always going to be there. They're always on the top of their game. They're always going to make it to the top.
Right.
They have this very arrogant attitude of, don't talk to me. You're not on my level. Then you get the guys that have made it there, that work their ass off to make it there.
And they want to bring everybody else along.
Exactly. They want to help out. They know what it takes to get there for, if you're not a 1%er, that it's just easy for you. And they really help you out.
So we talk about passion and we move into sales now, right? This is where it gets really weird. I've served people my entire life. I was a private in the Army. I was a second lieutenant in the Army, which is a private in the Army, by the way. Don't let them fool you. And then I resigned my commission, became a warrant officer, which all over again, I'm like I'm the coolest.
Watch this. I forgot to plug my phone in.
It's all good.
It's controlling the camera.
I'm the coolest people on the planet now because I'm a warrant officer. But I've always been in the service of people my entire life, no matter what. I served in the military, right? You're serving the higher leaders of whatever you're doing. Sales, I was built for. Is the wildest thing because I have a passion for helping people. And
well, you have that outgoing personality too, where you can connect with people.
Even though I'm an introvert, and that's not a joke. Like we'll talk about it, but I'm an introvert. It's not a joke. But you end up where you're very good at helping people through stuff. It's so funny because I used to do professional speaking. We had worked at this company out of Canada, and we had several. We had over 1,000 people, and I would get in front and speak, and people are like, "God, you're such a great speaker," right? And it's the ability to connect with people, I think, and relate to them, coming from where they come from, and then try to explain things in ways that they would understand it. Thank you, U.S. Army, for teaching me on a 4th grade level. But what I found is in sales, you're teaching and you're educating, right? 10% is overcoming objections, and 90% is educating people on what you're going to do. Other people are doing the stuff. However, I know how to do a lot of it too, because I was very hands-on stuff. So that's part of it. The other side of it is I have, and I don't know that everybody can do this. I talked to somebody recently. I didn't realize everybody can't do this. I visualize, right? It's so funny because I love the cars that I design and build, and people have helped out on that, but I visualize what I want that car to look like. I come up with a theme of it, and then I create it. I couldn't draw it.
Not many people have that ability
No.
to really picture it in your head without actually seeing it.
So I make everybody that's ever worked for me read a book called Defense of Duffer's Drift. And it is a story. It's in the Boer War. It's a story about this young lieutenant. They're on a patrol. They're left somewhere to hold this high ground, this drift. And he fucks it up, and everybody gets killed. And then he wakes up, and he's like, oh, shit. And he learns from his mistakes. And then he learns from his mistakes until, the 9th time around, everybody survives. Everything happens, and he gets up, and he gets to live another day. Really cool book.
There's a Tom Cruise movie that they just did with that. It's kind of similar situation. I saw that.
Yeah, it's something tomorrow.
Yeah,
so,
and every time he gets killed, he wakes up in the exact same spot he started in, and then it goes on for months and months, and finally they make it through everything. Everybody survives.
So I have the ability, if I'm talking to a customer, and my title used to be Chief Problem Solver. If I'm talking to a customer, I can listen to the challenges that they're having. I'm a Seymour. I see more customer environments in a day than some people see in a lifetime. So I have this definitional learning, knowledge gained through experience. I have all this experience I'm able to pull from. And what I found is my ability to visualize and pull from experience. I can look at the end state of what somebody's trying to get to in technology and go, yeah, no, it's not going to happen, right? It's not going to work. And tell them how to do it better. So that was one of the first things that set me apart, right? And I liked that. I liked the winning through my customers, where you do stuff and trust me, when you're managing other people that don't report to you to get the same result and communicate that vision and make sure they align with the vision, strategy, and execution, what you're trying to do, that is tough. And that takes leadership skills, and you learn them in the military, right? I learned them in the Army. And I'm not advocating for everybody to go in the military, but I am saying it is a pathway. It is a pathway if you need a route to go. It's not the absolute one, and you're raising your hand and you're signing on the dotted line. So guess what? You're committed. Even if you try to commit suicide, you're committed. So thank God, by the way. So I found that I was good at that, right? And I found that I was passionate about it because I like to help people. I like to talk to people, right? I like to solve problems.
And that was the biggest thing when I first met you, is that stands out to me is because I deal with people all the time with the shop. And I mean, I ran the front desk for years before I had somebody dedicated to that position.
Right.
You kind of know people that are easy to talk to, and they can communicate with you. It's not just
relatable.
They stare at you blank.
Right.
Yeah.
Relatable.
So that's one thing that I've noticed about you when we first met in that parking garage was, this is going to work out nicely.
Yeah, we had a pretty good connection there. And I'm going to tell you, I was very interested in you because I was, to take something from nothing.
And at that time, I was 3 years in.
Yeah.
So it wasn't very, very soon after we got the big shop.
He hadn't built the shop yet. And I saw a picture of the shop and I'm like, this guy's building an empire. Here's the thing that you don't realize. People with exotic cars, I drive the shit out of mine. Like we bought our R8 with like 36.
You're not one of those guys that it's never seen rain.
Oh no, our R8 when we bought it had like 36 or 38,000 miles on it. We stole that car. You can go watch YouTube. That story's out there. We sold it, had 107,000 miles on it, right? And we sold it for a whole bunch of money, more than we paid for it. But we drove the living dog shit out of that car. 107,000 miles in 2.5 years from 38.
I'm pretty sure I have video footage coming through the Foothills Parkway.
Yeah, heavy foothills Parkway. But take that passion for just a second. So I found that two things. I found, number one, I could help people solve problems. I put the effort in. I learned technology, right? I went to work for Cisco. True story. I go to work for Cisco, and I am day 3 on the job. And Sue Robbins asked me if I can go talk to a customer. By the way, everything we sold went through a partner. So they asked me if I could go with a partner to talk to this customer. Pomeroy was the partner, and I remember the name of the customer. I won't say it. To talk about land switching. And she goes, do you know the difference between a 3550 and a 4500? I said, yeah, 950. and I wasn't kidding. Honestly, I wasn't kidding. And I swear to God, some things happened when I first went on board that were uncomfortable, and I just got pissed off, right? Pissed me off, and I'm not kidding. I will go to the end of the earth to prove somebody wrong when I know that something's right. So I dug in.
I'm very much like that when I get pulled over.
Oh.
I will 100% take a ticket that I know I was doing 30 over, but if you pull me over for texting and driving when I'm handing my son a box of chicken nuggets, I'm going to go off on you.
Yeah, me too. It's weird. I think it's our generation, of the way that we came up. Like, it's just, right is right and wrong is wrong, and you should always do right. And of course, you'll drive yourself crazy if you live that way. You got to lighten up a little bit, Sally. Anyways, where was I at? I was Cisco.
3500. Yeah.
So Cisco. So literally 3 months later, I'm designing contact centers. So I started, I went into our engineering manager's office and I said, listen, I said, I'm going to be number one on this group this year. Damn it. And it's your responsibility to make sure I'm successful. You need to teach me what this shit is because you're not an engineer. And I was like, au contraire. Right? Au contraire. Yes, I am. And by the way, these people that I'm working with around here that are calling themselves engineers don't do implementation. I've done implementation in my past under project management, and they put their pants on the same way that I do, right? You're going to teach me. And the guy did an amazing job of doing that. We got weird after I left, but and I won't mention his name, but it did a great job of teaching me. And 3.5 months in, I'm designing contact centers. I'm building out router infrastructure, switch infrastructure, like doing all these amazing technology things. I'm architecting.
A long way from helicopters.
Long way, but I'm still flying.
Oh,
I'm still flying. I'm still flying in the garden. I'm living the best of both worlds, right? I have an airplane. I live in Atlanta. I'm working for Cisco. I have a geographical patch. I'm making my number early, by the way. So I flew in the counter drug task force. My boss knew this. Like I would go out and I would fly with the counter drug task force all summer in Tennessee. You don't hate the player, hate the game, by the way. and flew out of McGee Tyson a bit too, and out of Smyrna. And we're doing the stuff that we do. And I'm taking phone calls between refuels and lunch and doing other stuff and moving the business forward. And I made my number every year.
That's a big key to business ownership and kind of entrepreneurs being able to multitask like
must.
to.
And by the way, it's when you learn how to do it, it's intoxicating, right? Because you're like, okay.
It's scary the first time it happens. We're like, I got to do this, got to do this, got to be at 3 places at once. But once it's common, it's your everyday.
Go fly in the military. So I have a video back here that I'll break out someday. So I was a company XO, never a company commander. This company XO had 2 great company commanders, really good friends. Tony McConnell, I love you, Tony. When I'm acting as a company commander on a flight mission, and we're 3-5. So we've got myself, 2 outside scouts. They provide aerial observation. And then you've got your 5 gunships and you're engaging targets. We're in a simulator. We go to this battlefield simulation thing and we're there. I'm maneuvering 2 fire teams forward to get online. Got my scouts out. I'm talking to the ground commander on the stuff that he needs. I'm calling in artillery on vehicles that are coming in. My front seater, I'm talking through engaging targets, right? And then I'm giving a battle damage assessment report up on another radio channel to my commander.
And the front seater in a Cobra is everybody
also
controls the weapons. Also a pilot?
Well, so he's got the tow.
Okay.
In the back, I've got rockets and guns. In the front, he's got rockets and guns. I control the RMS in the back. But yeah, so it's 2 pilots, and you're just swapping off what you're doing. But if you watch that video, you're like, what the fuck is going on here?
It's kind of like modern air traffic control, honestly.
It's worse.
Everywhere, yeah.
It's worse. I'm employing weapon systems. I'm employing, I'm controlling fire teams fire maneuver. We're moving, adjusting positions. There's other companies. I'm talking to the other companies that are engaging, are the other pieces.
And you still got to fly.
and I'm flying. But flying it's like driving a car. It's like you don't even think about the
After
fact
you
that
do
you're
it for a
flying.
while.
By the way, this is at night under night vision goggles. Let me just add that point to it too, right? This is not daytime.
And this is the little quarter circles that you're seeing through.
You're looking through toilet paper
no
tubes.
peripheral vision.
Right. So, I mean, I've got my scan and everything going on, and you got a lip light, so I'm looking up radio frequencies and doing all this stuff, while we're flying and dialing. And, that's the epitome of multitasking. And it's so funny because when we, I work today with the company that I work for. I've got, it's 20 different things a day. I won't lie. It's 20 different things a day.
Well, I think when I was setting up the microphones, you took 2 or 3 phone calls
Yeah.
while we were doing this.
Yeah.
And still asking me questions at the same time.
There's a guy, Chris Bixel, you should talk to. We were a digression. I went and picked up somebody at the airport. We had been on a sales call, family member. We're driving, and cars just come to a dead stop. So I slow down. I see a car about to hit us in my rearview mirror, and I'm on a conference call. Chris is next to me, and I just keep talking. And I pull over on the side. The car just goes sliding up next to us. And Chris is like freaking out, and I'm continuing my conversation. Yeah. He's like, "What the hell?"
It's kind of situational awareness.
That's exactly what we call it: situational awareness of what's going on, but the ability to multitask. And if you train your brain to do that, which you can, if you train your brain to do that, I think that the world is your oyster. And passion. So I found this passion in problem solving and doing stuff for people. How did I accelerate it? Right? Because there's a lot of salespeople, and I'm not a salespeople. I run a line of business, but I'm also a salesperson. I have a number, and I work with our sales reps every day with customers and engaging and stuff. And there's some sales reps that don't even touch the deals that we work on, right? But I do big deals, like really big deals, really, really, really big deals, millions.
Similar
of
to what
deals.
my dad does he's a corporate lawyer. He does big transactions like
So-
that. Yeah.
But we're doing a lot of transactions a year. And how did I get there? I majored in accounting in college. And it's so funny because
That the military paid for.
that the military
Yeah.
paid for, right? And I'm in the car with my dad. My dad, by the way, we own a cab company in Columbia, South Carolina. My dad was a lawyer in Columbia, South Carolina, and lived in Clemson in that area. And I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, what should I major in? I may want to go to law school. And he's like, major in business. He goes, I wish I had majored in business. He goes, get the business background, understand how business operates, right?
And that's what Hope did to run all of our back shop. She does our taxes, she does our payroll, and she's a business major.
It pays off. People used to always look down on the business major. So I majored in accounting. By the way, I kind of like, oh, business management sucks. I better go into accounting. That sounds hard, right? And God, it was hard, by the way. But I never wanted to be an accountant. Well, let me tell you where it pays off. Everything that I do in work is based on financials. So problem solvers solve problems. Financial solvers sell money. And this honestly has been the key to my success is when I'm working with a customer and I understand the challenges or problems that they're doing. I came from Cisco and I know other vendors' technologies. I can look at how they're buying and I can see what they're buying and how they're using it.
You sound like my wife in car parts right now.
And I can restructure it, right? I can restructure the way that they're buying and purchasing this stuff. I don't change the service of what they're getting, but I'm able to change a few things and reduce costs by anywhere from 15 to 40%. So think about that. And I won't say the name of the customer, but last big deal that I did was about a $20 million list price deal. The customer, you do the math on this, but I think it's about $13 to $14 million of what they were going to pay over 5 years. $2.7 million a year was what the target was. That's not what their budget was. Their budget was about $2 million. I got in there understanding finances and how to structure these deals. And I didn't get into the technology. They were already using it. I restructured the deal and I took them from $2.7 million a year to $1.7 million a year, right? 31% savings over the 5-year term. Plus we were able to embed some services and other stuff that's going to help us grow their business and build that alliance, that partnership. And they fired their other vendor and copied me on the email when they sent it to the other vendor and said, you're not value add. Yeah, you sold me technology, but you didn't focus on, the things that a procurement person is concerned about, which is, reducing cost and freeing up capital to be able to spend money in other areas where they're growing and trying to maintain competitive advantage. And I'm the weirdest fucking guy in the world. That's my passion is I live in spreadsheets. And I like it.
I think we talked about this on the phone when we were talking about the dry ice and you possibly investing in my company is kind of you're saying all these words about investing in taxes and like you need to talk to Hope. I have no idea what you're saying right now.
Yeah, we were actually talking about your property because you put your property in production
right.
between 2017 and 2022. And was curious if Hope was a W-2 income earner and if you had any rental properties, which we're going to talk about because you need to get into rental properties because you got to start planning for your retirement, right? And you want passive income, above and beyond what you're doing here. And and by the way, it's so funny. I have no way to make money off of you on this when I'm calling and having this conversation. And that's why people think I'm a used car salesman sometimes. It's like, what's his angle? What's he trying to get to?
What's in it for you?
And I'll tell you what's in it for me. It's to be very candid. I have knowledge about something that people can benefit from. It's not my business. It's not what I do. So if I can share it and it's going to help you out on something, then so what, right? Honestly, so what? I don't lose anything. I don't gain anything, but I kind of do gain something, right? Your view of me changes a little bit.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's in it for him? So I go back. What was in it for Ben Stepp? Ben Stepp showed up at my house one day and said, pack your shit, you're coming to live with me. What was in it for Dallas Ball, this attorney that adopted a kid, out of high school that was living in a trailer? What was in it for him? What was in it for the people in my life that did this shit for me?
Some people, that's people's passion is just helping people. It's not gaining anything financial. It's you're helping somebody.
So I just took it full circle. I get to help people in sales every single day. I come across as a used salesman sometimes, but I really am just trying to help them. And truth of the matter is they typically either, because I do return on investment stuff as well, right? If you're going to buy this, if you make this investment on an asset, what is the rate of return that I can get on that?
We've done kind of situations when I'm selling jobs. We have very high paying jobs. We can go all the way up to over $10,000 in jobs. But our main big three, you're anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500, $3,000, and you'll come in and people expect you to sell you the best thing. Well, if that's not what's best for you, it's not going to do me any good because we're going to get it and then you're going to be unhappy.
I love when I go to somebody, and it's funny because I'm bullheaded. right? It can be arrogant sometimes. I love it. I go, I want this, I want to do this. And they're like, no, you don't. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, what? They're like, you don't want that. You want to do this, that, and the other. I'm like, huh? It's like, yeah, think about it. If you do this, that, and the other. And by the way, sometimes these are 16-year-old kids, right?
They just want the best of the best. Yeah.
And it's, you know, and by the way, seek those people out. Do you have mentors?
Not as much as I used to anymore.
I do.
Outside of baseball, I don't.
I do. I have mentors that are older than me. I have mentors that are my age, and I have mentors that are younger than me. And it's really weird. If you want to stay relevant in the workplace, which I'm going to retire in a few years, but if you want to stay relevant in the workplace, get a younger mentor. Listen to what the different generations. You got to have the coverage across all the generations.
I would say that's a big one, is adapting to what's going on in your life right now. We get older customers all the time be like, I need a wash and wax. We don't even carry wax in the building.
Right.
It's an outdated technology. Sometimes it's good in certain situations. For if you go into like old classic car shows where you're judged with that's one thing. But wax is just, it's so outdated. And then I look at them.
I think you want paint correction and a polish and then ceramic coating.
And even ceramic coating couldn't be good for somebody. If you like going through the car wash, or if you enjoy detailing your car before the car show and you're going to wax and wipe all over it, coating's not for you. It's not going to benefit you. But we have older customers all the time. We explain to them, well, that's kind of an outdated technology. Then we get into here's ceramic coating, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. And it's been a thing for 20 years.
That's my favorite words to hear is I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right. When you meet with somebody, especially if you have a service that you can sell, the stuff I'm talking about with you.
That statement's followed up with, can you explain that to me?
Yeah. And then you get to. By the way, you're selling. You don't realize it, but you're selling. Selling is education. That's just the simplest way about it. And that's where I became very passionate, because you get to help people in the things that you're doing. Now, some key things. You have to have integrity. You have to live by your word. And those two conflicts sometimes, you run into it. Because if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, right? And unless you're my wife, I'm going to do it right away. It's like, I said I would do it. I didn't say when. But, you know, your work reputation is incredibly important, right? And if you build stuff on integrity.
That's what's got us to where it is right now. There's plenty of shops in the area that have started, and they're still in their one bay garage or in their after 3-4 years, and they don't know how to get out of that. And a lot of it is that integrity. It's
integrity, and integrity builds trust, right? And you can never violate because you never get it back. But it's a two-way street, and that's the part where I don't think a lot of people realize this. I fired customers before.
Oh, you have to in business.
Some people, you know, the best customers.
Not every customer is your customer.
No. Now, some people, I've eaten a lot of shit from some customers, and you take it, right, because you see the light at the end of the rainbow. If you're going to be able to help them, and they'll come around. True story. I worked at Cisco, and I had a customer that fought me on a technology. Their CFO came from another company and said, "You're doing this," and he fought me. And then I finally called the CFO one day. I said, listen, I just don't think I can work with you guys. Like, no offense, but I'm doing everything that I can. I'm approaching it with honesty and integrity. You know, I'm trying to build trust here, and we're not getting there.
Yeah, some people are just hard-headed.
Guy called me back, and he goes, can you come out tomorrow? We're doing this deal. And we did. And guess what? They became my demo center for all of my customers, because once it was done and it worked the way that I said it was going to work, the guy was a believer for life.
The most expensive job I've ever sold, I told the guy to go somewhere else.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that story.
Yeah.
And it's funny though, but when you build that trust with people, like you've got their trust for life, right? And you know, they're people say, oh, they're work friends. Well, they're not work friends. I have customers that come over here. There's bottles of wine on here. We had a wine tasting not too long ago with a customer that we brought here.
Yeah, we went through some of this. It's pretty impressive. It's well above my experience with wine.
I like wine.
Frank's got some pretty exclusive bottles that are pretty impressive.
Anybody watching, I have some DRC or Romani Conti, so not a lot of people can get their hands on that. And I've got friends that are sommeliers that are like, you're full of shit. And then I FaceTime with them and show them. They're like, oh my God, right? We stayed the summer last year. We worked in Beaune last summer, which is the heart of all the Burgundy wines. And we rented a flat from a lady, and we were talking and got to know her a little bit. truly am introverted in some cases. When it comes to work and other stuff and people in the communities that I'm comfortable in, I'm there. But like when I'm traveling or something, like
you kind of want to do your own thing.
Yeah. I'm with Julia or I'm with the kids, and I kind of want to do my own thing. And I'll branch a little bit, and I'll see if there's a connection there. And if there is, there is.
Well,
if there isn't, there's
like
not.
The situation now, like this is still work. I'm not getting paid to do this, but it's still work for me. It's something that I'm trying to build.
Right.
But my family right now is at the campground, so as soon as we're done here, we're here till Sunday, spending time. I'm not going back to the shop. I'm doing it.
And that's important.
Yeah.
Like you need that time. So we're there, and I get to know the lady a little bit. We're talking, and I said, she's like, why are you in Beaune? Like, why Beaune? And I pull up the picture. We have a Courton Charlemagne, 2019 Courton Charlemagne DRC. And she looks at it and she goes, oh my God, you cannot sell that. And of course, the first words that go through my head are, fuck that bitch. I'm putting my kids through college with this. Right? And that's, what's his name? Bert Kreischer. The, fuck that, this is Russia. But that's the first thing that went through my head on this. But I got it, right? They're very loyal and passionate about their wine. And we were there, and got to see and experience a lot of that. So yeah, we're very much into that wine, and I digress. We won't talk about that. A couple fleeting points here for people that are looking at this or listening to this. Life is what you make it. No one's going to make it for you.
That's a big one.
People will help you along the way, especially. And I will say this: if I wasn't trying to do good for myself,
I don't think people can be self-built without somebody helping them along the way. There's nobody that's self-built. You can do it yourself without financial help and stuff like that, but there's always that opportunity that opens up for you that somebody else allowed you to have.
And I think it's what they see in you. And this is an important takeaway, right? Everybody's going to judge you in life. I don't give a shit what people say. Oh, don't judge him. I don't judge. Bullshit. Everybody judges everybody. I'll just tell you that right now. It's a facade.
That's just human nature. It's how it is.
It is. It's a facade. You know, and unfortunately, it's the world we live in. The thing I would ask of everybody listening to this, everybody, whether you're on the giving or receiving side of this, is go into everything with an open mind. That's number one. Number two, if you're coming up right now, I think you need to be open-minded, but you also have to be very true to yourself. You can't be a fake it until you make it kind of person. You can't. People see right through that shit.
That'll maybe open an opportunity for you, but you'll get called out on it real fast.
Right away. People see through bullshit. Like
we get it all the time with new hires. We are never hiring, but we're always taking interviews because I'm always looking for that one person that can change the shop. So I'll always interview somebody. Somebody calls, say we're not hiring, but we'll interview you, so we have you on. Right. And we get people that lie on resumes all the time. And when I start to go, all right, here's a 41 Ford. Go show me what you can do, and then they're like, I wasn't expecting that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a great point, right? So whatever job you get, and I get to pull my dad into this now because I love this, and you've heard me talk about this before. So my dad, Dallas Ball, adopted father, lawyer, used to always tell me, listen, Frank, I don't care if you're a ditch digger, be the best ditch digger you can be, right?
Yeah. If you're going to do something, do your best at it.
And by the way, that's a point in time. And I say that because whatever job you're doing, build your reputation based on your work ethic, because it's going to speak leaps and bounds for you. And then when you move to the next thing, whatever it is, carry that reputation forward. Don't be one of those people that talks about all the great shit that you've done.
Yeah.
Let your action, because I have people all the time, I'm so great. Look at me. No. I will look at you through the things that I see you do, right? And by the way, people hate to interview with me because, like, literally, when I was hiring back in the day, because we're hiring within and acquiring companies now, but when I was hiring back in the day, I had a written exam for technical people that they had to take to get to the interview. And people are like, I'm not doing that.
To get to the interview.
And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, great, I'm not hiring.
That's fine. Have a good day.
Yeah, have a good day. You're not what I'm looking for. And the ones that would take it, I could see by the way that I was asking the questions that they had the depth of knowledge. It just was dated, and I could bring them up to speed, or if they just didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
It gives you a base so you know what to work with before you even get to that point.
Yeah, and I would get 75% of the people that either wouldn't take the test or took the test and failed. They never wasted my time talking to them.
I do something similar to that when I make my hiring posts on, like, all our business is just social media, as you know. We don't have a .com website. We don't have anything. It's all word of mouth and Facebook and Instagram. So when I make a hiring post, I'll make it on my personal page, not our business page. And the first line of it will be, don't message me directly, message the business page or send an email. What do I get?
Message directly.
Right to me. And then what's the position? And the second line is what the position's for.
You know what we call that in the military? FFI. Failure to follow instructions. And by the way, that's a disqualifier.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Attention to detail is important, people, in life, right? And if you can't follow the simple instruction there, how am I going to teach you when you come work for me.
And
So
we see it all the time. We'll train somebody. I'll spend 20 minutes showing them how to do something. As soon as I turn away and walk back around, they're right back to doing what they're doing because they know better. And it just it doesn't work like that.
I look for people that are inquisitive too. And there's a barometer that I have, just so you know, when I do this. So I would do that to get to the interview, and I would make sure that they're technically compliant with what we need to do. Then I'm looking at the person because I've established they can do the job somewhat, right? So now I'm looking at the person. I want to see how they think. I want to see how they solve problems. By the way, we used to do.
Everybody's going to tell you what you need to hear in an interview. You want to know how they really are. It's
Yeah.
a lot of like student athletes now. Recruiters will go. The first thing they click on is their social media background. If you're waving guns, drinking, doing all this stuff, it steps you down a peg in the recruitment process.
Are you a Deion Sanders fan?
Yes and no. I haven't followed his recent stuff, but I mean, I've read a lot about it. It's been big on social media recently. But
So he's out in Colorado. He's got this college team. And God, you got to love him. Like, by the way, I hate Tony Robbins, but I heard Tony Robbins say one day, create a unique identity and live it. What he really meant was like, be yourself, be true to yourself of who you are. And what you see yourself being, live that life. Sanders is doing that out of Colorado, right? He's differentiating himself from all the other coaches out there, talking smack, getting his butt kicked, right? But he's talking smack. It's like, this is what we're building. By the way, year one coach in college football is hard to do. Of course, Neil's going to help it a little bit. But he got asked in a press interview one time after he had a major loss, and they were up and then lost. And he goes, how do you do that? And he goes, I don't know. And he goes, and bear with me, like he's doing his best to keep his composure. I got to imagine passionate, because he's a passionate guy, right? Maintaining your passion when somebody asks you a question, you just want to walk over and smack him, and you can't do it, right?
As an athlete, if you even we're required to talk to the press after a game. You can't just storm off. But you have a good games are easy.
You
Those
got to hold
interviews
it.
are simple. Bad games, they're going to ask you, be like, well, why did you do this, or what choice was this? And you have to.
Imagine eating a box of X-Lax after you just had Mexican, and then you got to do an interview, because guess what? You got to hold that shit in, right? But in this interview, somebody said, how do you get here? How does this happen? And he goes, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. He goes, but the only thing I can tell you, and this is important, the only thing I can tell you is there are people that love this game enough to put their body in front of whatever it takes to win. And there's other people that like it, like social media. Social media likes, right? That's a defining moment for everybody listening to this. And by the way, some people call me a used car salesman. I would look down on them and say, you can't do what I do. And you don't want to, right? You don't want to step in and have the depth of knowledge and learn the stuff that you need to be able to do to have a conversation at the C level and the engineering level, right? You don't have the depth of knowledge. You never put the time in to do it. So you can't do what I do, so you're going to be jealous. You're always going to have that, right? Always. And
we have some stuff. I kind of aggravate some of our guys when they run into problems. Like, they're really good at what they do, but they'll come across some stuff in the detailing world that they've never encountered before that I have. And they'll come and ask me a question. I'll come over there. I'll show them how to do it. They'll do exactly what I just showed them how to do, and they don't get the same result. And they just pull their hair out. They're like, how? And it's just, at that point, it's just kind of like a feel thing, and you got to figure out what works for you. What works for you not going to work for everybody else.
That's the key, by the way, because what I'm telling you is what worked for me. But you're right; it's got to work for you. But if you don't put the time in, right? If you and it's hard work. Like, this shit's not easy. If you don't put the time in and do the core development stuff that you need to do for yourself to build, the work ethic.
You have to have the foundation.
You have to have that foundation, but you got to build that foundation yourself, or you're never going to get there. And by the way, that was the things that I got from my dad. My dad was like, I don't care if you're a ditch digger, be the best ditch digger you can be.
So that was my thing. It's been a couple of years since he offered to invest in the company, and I was really coming into seeing the uptick in the business, and it was, I have to build this foundation by myself. I don't need somebody else to help me make the base for it.
Right.
It's to a point now I would probably consider something like that, simply because of the conversation we had earlier about it's been 8 years. I'm still working in the shop on a daily basis. Not something I need to do. I like the social media aspect of it, the marketing aspect of it, networking, being able to travel. The guys have the shop. They know what to do. I shouldn't have to be there.
Here's the cool thing. Now is when you need me the least.
Yeah.
So you don't need investors.
But that's what makes me feel better, talking to
Right.
somebody that's gone as far as you have in the business aspect of it, is, well, I did something right. Something's working.
Do you know how many times I failed? By the way, we didn't talk about failures. Do you know how many times I failed?
You can count them on more than two hands.
Yeah. But here's the thing. By the way, the interview thing, I want to close the loop on this. When I interview somebody, I'm looking at a lot of different traits, but there's one key thing that I look at, because I'm hiring salespeople, or people are going to work in pre-sales. close me.
Yeah.
And it's really weird.
Is this the sell me this pen kind of aspect?
No. I'm not even that. But by the way, I sold one time. But no, I'm not even that complex. What I'm looking for is this. We finish the interview. Okay, we talked about this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. Is there any questions that you have for me? And I ask them that. And I do it intentionally because there's a question and by the way, I've got a blog out there on this. There's a question I'm expecting them to ask me, just so you know. And it's a high expectation because when I finish with a customer, if I'm going through something, I usually go, we talked about this, we did this, I'm going to go back and put a proposal. Let me ask you a stupid question. And it's very open-ended. What would keep you from buying this solution from me? So you, this solution, me. I'm connecting all three together. And I listen, I pull out my notebook because they're going to tell you 2 out of 10 times. 8 out of 10 times they're going to, yes, fuck you, right? But 2 out of 10 times, somebody's going to give you honest feedback and they're going to say, listen, I'm not comfortable with so-and-so. I don't like that vendor. This, that, and the other. And they're going to give you nuggets and feedback that you're going to be able to use in the future, or they give you an objection you can overcome. And that's a part of sales. And I know you're not.
The biggest thing we get is after we do the whole sales pitch, we go through prices is, well, let me talk to my wife. Well, what would be her objection or his objection if we were standing here right now, and how can we get around that?
Yeah. So, what's biggest fear, right? What's biggest fear of your wife?
Is it the price or is it the value of what you're getting?
Right. And the reason why it's important, because I'm going to tell you.
Because you're here right now. You know our reputation. You know we're not the cheapest in the area. So you coming through the door and asking me the question to begin with, you're expecting to, it's going to be.
And if it's PPF, it's a real simple thing. It's like, pay me now, pay me later, right?
Well, if you don't pay me now, you're going to pay your painter later.
Right. And you're going to pay a lot more. And you're going to diminish the value of the vehicle, which is a whole other conversation, just the depreciation. So what I'm looking for somebody to ask me is, what would keep you from hiring me for this position, right? And I'm looking for people that close. And by the way,
my old interviews, that's what I usually end it. It's like, what could I have done better? Whether you're hiring me or not, what else could I have done better?
That's the exact same question, but I'm asking it a different way. But listen, if you don't get the job, ask that before the interview's over. Get through the interview and make sure you do your best piece of you, and I can give you advice on that. And by the way, everything's an interview, kind of. Right? Everything in life is an interview.
It's not you sit down and asking questions as soon as you walk in that door. How firmly do you grab my hand?
Right.
Do you even shake my hand at all?
And by the way,
do you have your phone on your lap in the interview? You're
building acquaintances in life that you're not going to do business with sometimes too, right? What gives them the right to be in your life? Who are they, right? You're judging, right? But you're always figuring people out. But that's a listening technique, by the way, that I use with people to kind of figure out, are they skilled for a job? You should use that in any job that you interview on, by the way, as you're climbing the ladder, because this is about climbing the ladder, right? So when you're starting out and you're building your foundation, when you build your reputation, you're going to have an opportunity. Something's going to come your way. Look at it and evaluate it, right? Is this a lateral move? Do I need this lateral move to grow? Is it a step up? Am I prepared? What if I fail? What does failure look like? Am I going to tumble to the ground and I've got kids and I got to take care of? You got to evaluate all of that, right? But do it quickly. Right? Do it quickly, depending on your personality type. I'm a DI, by the way, for those of you that are familiar with the DISC. So I'm a DI, so I evaluate stuff very quickly and I make a decision. But when you get that seat at the opportunity, right, and somebody's talking to you about it, or you're going through an interview, make sure you always ask those questions and find out. These are self-improvement questions. That's all you're doing.
Don't let you not getting a job through an interview be the failure. Learn from it. So
or use it to get the job. Yeah. To get the job, because sometimes when you ask that question, people are going to give you candid feedback that you're able to say, I hear what you're saying. And I'm working with somebody right now, by the way, that is very glass half empty. And to give them the next level, they got to be glasses half full. And by the way, I see so much potential in this person. It's crazy. I recruited them, this, all this other stuff. We had the conversation, and you have to have the right time to have it. We had it at the right time.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I made a post about this the other day. I think the hardest part about being a business owner that has been in business for a long time is seeing people come and go that have the potential to probably be one of the best in their field.
Right.
And that off the field or out of the shop life decisions just hinders it all.
It does.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's what we're telling you right now, by the way, is if you're thinking about getting into the business, the guy down the street
change your circle. Change your circle. That's all it takes.
Change your circle. And also remember, the guy down the street from him that 3 years later is still in his garage, right, hasn't learned the power of people. And as you're trying to make your way up this ladder, the truth of the matter is there's people that are looking for people trying to make their way up the ladder, because
you don't have to do it yourself. No, you can ask for help.
I can get much more leverage out of 10 this is arrogant, mini-me's. And I don't mean mini-me's because every one of them brings something different to the table. By the way, I always tell everybody that works for me, at some point in time, I have my way of doing stuff, and I'm very process-oriented, and I'm methodical in the things that I do. You're going to learn that. And at some point in time, you're going to fire me, and you're going to take it, and you're going to tweak it better so you get a better shine out of that car using your technique than mine, right? That's the key on that. We're looking for people like you, because if I get 10 mini-me's, I now am 10x of me. I'm Archimedes. Right?
You say mini-me's, and I think the biggest thing that I didn't realize when I started this business early was you might have a 0.5% chance to find somebody that cares about the business as much as you do, because it's not theirs. Sure. And it took me probably 5 years to wrap my head around that, because I was getting so frustrated with the guys in the shop. Like, oh, they're not passionate. Oh, they're leaving early. Oh, they didn't come to an actual stopping point. It's just
they're hitting the like button.
Yeah,
they like the paycheck. They don't love what they do.
That's it.
They like the paycheck.
And to at least do what I do, and a lot of anything to get to that level or your level where you're at right now, is you have to have a passion for it.
So I know your people are going to listen to this, and you can kick me under the table.
I'll play this in our lobby.
They're going to kick me. You're going to kick me for this. You probably have people that work for you right now, and you're looking at more time away from the business where you can trust somebody. So every day he's looking at the people that works for him and saying, hey, who could I really trust to do this?
Yep.
Right. Because by the way,
that's an everyday thing. Even if I'm there or not, is I'll as I walk around, I'll be like, who's got what this takes and who really wants to do it?
And when you invest in people, because people are going to come and go, when you have somebody that carries that passion into the business, you're going to pay them more. Right?
Absolutely.
You're going to cut them in on more because it's hard to fire people. It's hard to lose people.
Hope and I had this conversation the other day is if you don't have that person, you can pay them whatever they ask for.
Right.
They're not going to change as a person.
No.
It's always going to be like, oh, this isn't enough, or I'm doing too much for what I get paid for. There's always that mindset. If you don't have a passion, if they don't want the drive to improve, you can pay them $10,000 a month. They're still going to.
And what does that look like, by the way? So work ethic, it's funny because and you have to quantify this for people. And I had this in my head. An artist, right? An artist can give you the most amazing looking car on the planet, but if you take 6 months to do it, you're upside down. So work ethic means you understand how to do your job inside and out, and you understand how to get stuff in and do the amazing most quality that you can in the fastest amount of time. That way you can do 5 jobs in a day instead of 1 job in a day. That's how you go from making whatever you're making to 2x.
And that's what a lot of people new to business don't understand about your business. Your boss is always going to make more than you. You can't take that personally. Like,
well, they took the risk.
We've had employees in the
Without them, they don't exist.
That no longer work for me now, and it was kind of like a I don't know if it's jealousy or like they see the house we have, the cars we have, what we come up. What they don't realize is if you break those jobs down into individual jobs, they make more off that job than we do.
Right.
The reason we're making more than you is because we have 8 other people doing the exact same thing.
Exactly right.
And that doesn't click. They just see, oh, we have a Viper. Oh, we have a nice house. You know what I mean? It's
your family, right? You have your family, but you have this work family you're responsible for, right? You're maintaining the salary and payroll, and by the way, paying taxes on all of them, doing all that other stuff that you're doing because you're doing payroll matching.
A lot of people don't realize how much it is for paying tax on just payroll.
Oh, it's awful, right? But that's the thing, and I always I never pay any attention to that, and I usually try to bring people in.
The government will charge us tax on what we're paying you that they also tax on.
Exactly right, and that's where you want to look at somebody and say, hey, listen, no offense. If you think you can do it better,
do it.
Then go do it. Right?
We used to sign non-compete contracts, and that very early on because I was afraid that I'm going to teach somebody and they're going to go do it. Finally, I realized that started happening. That started happening anyway. That was it. It was like, oh, you want to do it? Have fun.
Yeah. I used to all the financial analysis stuff that I do. I used to guard it with my life. Right? And I still do to some point to our competitors, but I used to go out and teach it. I had my own business, was teaching people how to do this. What I found was, and I'm not a bad teacher, but it could have been me. 9 out of 10 people are just too lazy. They're not going to.
They don't have the passion for it. They don't. They see it. They want it, but they don't know what it takes to get there.
They would rather lose an opportunity than go the extra mile and do the legwork to ensure that they increase the probability of close on what they're doing. And by the way, make more money doing it.
The first 5 years, opportunity. The first 5 years that we were open, I worked my birthday, Christmas, and New Year's Day.
Yeah.
It was just the way around it. So cause I wanted to stay on track. I wanted to give the guys time off with their families. I'm really big with national holidays. They should be able to do that. Our shop's only open 35 hours a week. So even then, we're still open 10 to 5, Monday to Friday. And half the time, they're not there on Friday. So I know the time I put in away from my family, I don't want them to have to make the same sacrifice at my shop. So we just have a number to hit. That's it. If they hit that number,
Then you're
go home
golden.
on Thursday.
Yeah,
if
then
you
you're
want to
golden.
do more, I'll schedule more, but you do not have to. So
Well, that's-
time is a big thing for me growing up and kind of going through business pains and learning to do things wrong or right. I find that giving your guys, paying them right, one, but giving your guys time with their families outside of work.
It's huge.
big one.
Work-life balance. You have to get there. By the way, if you're single, you can go home and play video games, or you can double down early on work, right? Which you should do to learn your trade and do the things that you're going to do to be the best at it that you can be.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say you're going to be the best out of everybody.
When I started this, we had our first child. I have a 13-year-old from my past marriage,
Right.
but when Hope and I had our first daughter, Ariel, she was probably 6 weeks, 7 weeks old. She's in the shop midnight while I'm working, and she's sleeping on the couch with her, just so we can have that time together.
You came in. I had a call. I got a call last night at like 7:30 at night on somebody with a question, because we cover West Coast too. And I took the call. Right, we're not doing anything. We're watching a little bit of TV, hanging out with the wife. But I took the call, and then I hopped online. I gathered all the people together. So this morning, I'd have more time. We had a customer down emergency this morning, and like, I don't handle customer down emergencies, right?
Well, that's kind of the toilet paper thing I was telling you about earlier.
But he reached out to me. Everybody else was on calls. And I jumped in, and we got the customer back up and running. Right, having the experience, running a practice, having the experience to be able to do that is really cool.
And that was going back to know everything, know how to do everything that you offer.
Right, and that's a key. So some key takeaways. You have to put in the time. You really do.
There's no way around that.
You have to.
Experience is going to come with time, and you have to put the time in to be able to learn everything that you do.
So I go in the Army. Right, and then passion is important. I go in the Army, and as I'm leaving, my dad goes, "If they ask you, volunteer for everything." Right, and I'm like, Jesus, my dad's trying to get me killed.
Be a
right?
yes man.
And it's not an ass kisser yes man. It's when an opportunity presents itself, take advantage of it, because you don't know where it's going to lead you, and this is the journey of life. And by the way, that's how I got to do all this cool shit in the military. Like, hey, who wants to go to this? I'll do it, right? And everybody's looking at each other.
What do you want to fly? Cobras.
Right. Well, and when you get yourself into those positions by work ethic and the other stuff where your reputation speaks for itself.
If they know you have the work ethic and you show that constantly, time and time again, opportunities will open up for you.
Yes.
I haven't told anybody this, but I have a pretty good job opportunity that was offered yesterday for a pretty large company in the industry that I'm in, and it's still that's still a possibility. Like, me and Hope have been discussing it for the last day or so to see what changes I can make, and that's kind of where it comes into, well, what's the shop going to do when I'm not there?
Right. And what have we done? How do we look? And you gotta process and evaluate that, but you gotta do it quick, right? And I would say, if you're young, be smart about the opportunities that you do, but go into them. The other thing is you've got to have at your core, you got to have integrity. You've got to come at things honest, in an honest method. You got to be honest with yourself. And by the way, you got to get your ego out of the way. I see a lot of people that, the old saying, customer's always right. Well, guess what? For the most part, customer's always right. They're not always right, but for the most part, customer's always right. Even when you're yes fucking them out the door and agreeing with them, and they're never going to be your customer ever again. Like, your reputation precedes you, especially if you're a business owner. Your reputation precedes you. And bad news travels like wildfire. Good news you hardly ever hear about.
So when you just like Google reviews on small businesses, when you have a good experience, that's expected of you. You expect to have a good experience. So
That's what you're paying for.
You're not going to jump right off the bat and go, here, I'm going to go review this. We have a tough time getting 5-star reviews because that's what people expect from us and our reputation.
Right.
They have a bad experience.
You're
They're
gonna
1 star before you leave the parking lot.
Exactly right. And it's funny because 5-star is the expectation. Let's just make that clear. How do you get there? You get there, by the way, by going through the motions of doing things and failing and being honest about it. Because I'm going to tell you what, if
there's going to be people also on the other end that you're just not going to, you're not going to make happy.
There are some people you'll never please, but I would say for the most part, when you're working with people, if you're honest with them about, and we're doing something right now in our business that is brand new, like it's an alpha, and we're telling our customers, like, we're saying point blank, we're going to customers saying, hey, do you have interest in this? I want that. And we're like, okay, but it's an alpha. Okay, so don't put it in production. Well, I want to do a test group. Okay, but do it in a small test group. And by the way, it's an alpha. you're making sure that when you're going in, you're telling them.
Setting expectations.
You're setting clear, delineate expectations. And by the way, you make sure that you get them in the boat rowing with them. So their wins are your wins and their losses are your losses, right? And that's the thing. A little bit different when you're detailing a car, but not so different, right? Because if you mess something up, right, there can be something messed up.
The setting expectation thing in ceramic coating, when you explain to people or sell somebody that has never had it or doesn't know about it before, it's you look online and TikTok and all these ridiculous things where it's scratch proof, dent proof, and all that stuff.
Not even
you
close.
Need to nip that in the butt right away, because if
close.
you don't go through that and then you finally get into they're ready to pick up their car, they just spent $2,000 on it. It's like, oh, by the way, this isn't scratch proof, and that's what they were expecting. Doesn't matter how good the job is. That's not what they wanted. Yeah.
So. Being honest with yourself too is, if you're going to take something on that you've never done, right? If you know that you can, if you're like me and you can visualize how to do it and you had good confidence in it, that's great, right? But you also have to look at the risk reward, and you have to look at not through your eyes, but through
if you've never done it before, have trust in the person that you're paying to have done. Trust in what they're saying until they give you a reason not to.
And if you're on the other side of that and you're giving that service, just be open and honest with them. Look at it and see if you can do it, but be open and honest with them and say, listen, I'm positive I can do this, but I've never done it before.
So what kind of blows my mind, it could be the outlook I have on my online presence is everybody in my industry in our area is building a shop. They want that big shop. They want to be where finishing touches. We see it all the time. But I told Hope, there's not one person that has come up to me and asked me, how did you do that?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like I'm automatically where they want to be, and it's automatic hate. It's they're going to talk trash about the work, or it's a ripoff, or why don't you come ask me how I got there?
Right.
So you can do that.
Go figure it out.
In 7 years or 8 years we've been open, I've never once had that question from another shop.
So I asked you what's next for you. My story doesn't end here. I just want to throw it out there. So we are, and just so you know what goes on in the mind of, an entrepreneur. I'm looking at a lifestyle change. You like this house? Pretty big house, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so too big for us. And we know that. Too much to clean, too much to maintain. We have 5 kids. 3 are out of the house. We're about to be down to 1. And we have way more room than we need here. So we started looking about a year ago, kind of kicking the can. What are you going to do? We own some rental property stuff, so we've got other houses. But I'm looking at, what does Frank 5.0 look like? Because it'd be like the 5th or 6th rendition of myself. And if y'all are ready for this laugh, I'm taking all the life experiences of what I have being in the service of people. I'm taking our passion for travel and combining them together a little bit. We found a property.
Well, I've noticed that too. You've been on the plane quite frequently in the last couple of years.
A lot. And if we could, I love Europe, and I don't hate America, so let's just start there. I love America too. What I love about Europe is everything is so close together, and it's cramped with history.
You don't have to drive 5 hours to go somewhere.
If you drive 5 hours, like you're going, if you drive,
you're in another country.
You are. Or by the way, so we were last summer. We had breakfast in Alsace in France, crossed through Germany into Switzerland. We had lunch at Bergenstock in Switzerland, and then drove to Italy and had dinner in Lago di Como. Right. And that was one of our days. Like you don't get to do that here. And we drove, and it wasn't hard driving.
You can't go over to Memphis and have lunch and come back.
I can't drive to McGee Tyson. I can't drive to Murrayville, right. And go up there and have lunch. It's a haul. So it's a different lifestyle that lived over there for 3 years that kind of appeals to us. And my wife lived in Ukraine. So she's, lived in Europe, but we have kids here. So we're anchored here. So as much as it's a pipe dream, we even talked to them and said, hey, would y'all move? As much as it's a pipe dream, it can't happen. So we're bringing France to us.
Yep.
Everybody does Italian vineyards. So we're actually looking at, we looked at 8.5 acres. It was just beautiful, perfect. It had a 20-acre water reserve behind it so we could fish, and my son loves to fish.
Well, you're talking about water. That was the first thing that I noticed coming down here. Yeah, we're kind of in Frank's the first level right here, and out back, it almost looks like you have the pool outside the door, and then it's like your own private pond.
Yeah,
and it's
6 acres.
I say pond, but it's a lake if anybody is not around water. It's very large, yeah.
So we had certain requirements that we needed, but here's kind of the next version. And I'm going to put it out there in the universe because we are looking at doing it. And it's going to be as the kids go, go on to college and do stuff. So we want probably at least 10 acres, if not more. We're going to put a vineyard in. we're in Georgia. You can't grow good wine. I don't care what anybody says. And if you're a Georgia vineyard, I apologize. But, a good wine is a good French wine. So we're going to do musky dimes, and we're going to do them for show. And we'll probably make chutney or whatever. We're not going to just throw them in the trash. But we're going to set up our house is going to be on the property, right? So we will have our main residence there. We're monetizing where we live. I've been reading tax law. So we're going to monetize this. And the first thing that we're going to do is put in a small bistro. So we'll get the grapes going. We're going to do a small bistro lifestyle. So lifestyle change. Open Friday morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. How'd you like your cappuccino? Was it pretty good?
It is good. Even it's cold now because we've kind of in-depth conversation, but I'm still gonna drink it even now. So
get a barista in there. We're gonna get the pastries and stuff from France that are in there. We're gonna do lunch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and lunch is gonna be non-food, nothing we have to cook. So food prep, sandwiches, paninis, baguettes, some French onion soup, some charcuterie and salads and stuff like that are comfort foods. And our whole thing is gonna be on the coffee in the morning. And then the wine starting in the afternoon. We're going to do a dinner in the vines setup. And we've got friends that own a restaurant here. And I have to give Casanova here, Italian restaurant, and Alfred, a little hole-in-the-wall place, but you got to go to their family restaurant. Great food, great environment. And he's a sommelier too, by the way. Great guy. We got the idea from them of doing dinner in the vines because they're looking for places to do farm to table. And they're like, if you do it in the county that you're in, we would probably come in once a month and rent it. So imagine you get a collaboration with restaurants and you're doing dinner Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night in the vines in the spring and in the fall, probably not too much in the summer because it's too hot, but you could do something there. So we have this thing, we're going to set it up as a club. So it's there. So we have the vines, we have the bistro. Now we have the dinner. The one property we looked at had a 30 by 40 barn. That was basically car barn. We were going to extend that 200 feet. We're going to create Musée de Voiture, or a car museum, tie it to our two charities, right? And literally set it up as a museum, not for profit.
And we didn't even get into that. That might be for another conversation one day. Is you're very involved in a lot of charities that have to do with gift giving, kids. Crown Rally isn't a big thing right now due to some unfortunate circumstances, but that was a big thing in your life the past couple of years, is giving back to the community.
And I don't wear it on my sleeve. It's weird. A lot of people are like, hey, let's set up a not-for-profit and take your money. No.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would do that would be tied to it, and you'll like this story, by the way, because you're going to be involved in this and you don't even know it yet. The only reason that I would do it in this case is because I am providing, I have friends that have cars that, would probably make a $8,000 a year donation and put their car in there, car storage, put their car in there as part of the exhibit. What I want to do, though, is for these kids that are tied to these two orphanages and charities that we work with, G Technique, as an example, pays money to a place to go, and I know how much they pay, and they go there once a year to do training.
Yep.
What if they did a tax donation to our charity, this museum, and we gave them access to come down 4 times a year and do training there? My only one ask is I get 2 slots per class, and they go, one goes to Baldridge Lodge, and the other one goes to Goshen Valley, where these kids get to come in and
something that it otherwise wouldn't have been able to do that kind of experience. Yeah,
wouldn't have that experience, and they get to do something where they get the experience where they might be able to say, "Hey, we're going to start detailing cars," right? And they get
it just takes one. It just takes one. It's like, oh, this is cool,
and it opens a pathway for them to go work for one of the ceramic coating companies, or whatever, or a detail shop, and learn this.
Yeah, if you don't want to run your own business, you can still acquire that skill and make really good money doing that for somebody else.
So that's the other part of it. Then there's more. We're going to do Airbnbs on the property, ag land we can do. On that property, we would have done down by the lake, and we're going to create a wedding venue destination and get the kids involved in it. So the charities would be involved in the bistro and the stuff that we do there, and create a pathway job for them. So they've got a job that they can do when they're not in school, and even potentially after school. Wedding event planning and all that other stuff, have that there. Go look at cycle carts. They're big in the Pacific Northwest. They're not big here. They look like 1910, 1920 eras cars that are scaled down. They use motorcycle hubs on them. And in the vineyard, because this is going to be a French vineyard, we're going to have the Bugattis and the other cars that are there. But we want the kids involved in that as well. The membership, because this is going to be a membership place as well, where you buy a membership and we have special events that we do. We're going to do basically 4 events there with the cars and very Francophile French it up, right? I got a good friend of mine, Joan Dambrin, here in Atlanta, looking for a job, by the way, good guy in cybersecurity, very heavy Parisian accent. He's a Parisian. I'm like, Jerome, I'm going to hire you to come in. I'm going to give you a honorary membership. but you're going to come in and curate these events. I want that heavy, thick French accent where nobody can understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And we're going to ham it up and create.
You want to create that atmosphere.
We want the atmosphere where people come.
I remember when I first moved to Tennessee from Canada, it was,
whoa.
I couldn't understand anybody. And if you've ever heard my wife's mom, Laura, talk, it is very thick, y'all, very Southern. And
I reckon I'm fixing to do something like.
Well, you'll catch my Canadian accents and stuff I say, like sorry and tomorrow and stuff like that.
Sun's shown on this. 13 provinces. I own a software company in Canada. So anyways, all of this though is in the service of people, but differently. And we want to bring our French experience, basically to Georgia. And we don't have to leave. The other thing is we're probably going to start a travel destination company around that and take people that have interest in French. And we're only going to do French wines, by the way. But people that have an interest in French wine and French culture, or Italian wines and Italian culture. We've lived over there. We spent time over there. We know how to shortcut where to go to have that experience that you're looking for. And we'll either do destination planning and probably charge for that because that's going to be a part of the business, or we're going to take our members and non-members on destination vacations where we go over, set it up, and we take them to the places where we've been and give them just a world-class experience. That's Frank 5.0.
It's kind of, if you've never been to Europe, France, or anywhere in between, and you are just unsure, you want to go, here's kind of a map to take to get all of the experience for your first time.
And depending on what that experience wants to be, right? Because we've been to, to Brittany, we've been to Normandy. I walked the Camino de Santiago through the Pyrenees all the way across to the coast of Spain twice, by the way. We've done Paris so many times. We've been to Champagne. We've been to Pomerol, West Bank of Bordeaux. We've been to Le Mans. We've been to the Loire Valley.
It's almost like you need
Provence.
that big world map up on the wall and just put thumbtacks everywhere.
It's about the experience. When somebody says, hey, we want to go, we're looking at going June, July. We want to go and get a real good French experience. We want to stay in Paris for a little bit, but we want to, get out and go somewhere.
Where time of year would be a big thing too.
Yeah.
It's just
big
like
time.
here, nobody wants to come to Georgia in the middle of summer.
No. So harvest season is in the fall. So harvest season, I can tell you where to go. But if you're looking to go in June, July, well, go to Provence. Yeah. See the lavender fields, right? Go down south and go to the beaches. Go to Antibes, where there's a sandy beach. Go to Nice so you can experience it. If you're looking at culture stuff, there's the Route de Napoleon. I love Napoleon, by the way. I studied in college a little bit. So there's all that stuff. So we're looking at that. So if everybody is hearing what I'm saying right now, I'm not talking about this to talk about myself. I'm dreaming right now.
I'm dreaming. This is your look into an entrepreneur mindset.
Yes.
There's so many ideas you have going on. All you have to do is say one out loud. And if somebody else hears it, be like, let's talk about that for a second.
And I have people that challenge me that go, man, this is going to be a lot of work. What do you know about the restaurant business? Yeah. And here's what I say.
We're not afraid of work.
Well, it's not only that I'm not afraid of work. I love learning, but it's the other side of it is this. I'm buying a piece of property that we're moving our primary residence on. If I did nothing, I've already won, right? Because my wife has less house to maintain. And I got more grass to cut. That's the truth of the matter. If I do this, right, and it's successful, we're going to create a brand. A brand and an image that, we've got 5 kids that they may decide that they have an interest in this. My daughter.
And then, like you said, that's kind of like your generational wealth sort of situation where it keeps going, where you just keep on, it keeps falling down the line.
However, my kids would tell you, I'm not a spoiler. I'm not.
I firmly agree with that because I was like that. When my parents, I was adopted. I was an only child for a long time until I was 7, and then they adopted my sister, which is only 2 years younger than me. Yeah. So that was a long time for me to be an only child, and they gave me everything I ever wanted. It didn't matter what we were doing, and my wife, like I said before, was the opposite of that. She keeps me under control, and we're like that with our kids now. Is like we give them more than most, but we make them accountable for it.
I only have 2 wishes in life. Only 2. I'm a very simple person when it comes to this. All my kids bury me. I go first, right? So all my kids bury me. That's the first thing. Second thing is my kids have a better life than I did.
Yeah.
And they've had their challenges, but I think, for the most part, they're succeeding. My son, graduated magna cum laude, had a job working full-time, getting paid full-time 6 months before he graduated college. Work ethic, right? Worked at G Technique. They begged him to come back.
And that's it. Is your reputation for a work ethic travels very fast?
Yeah, big time. People seek you out. My daughter majored in animal sciences, full scholarship, full ride to UGA. Didn't have to pay tuition for her or any of the 3 kids in or out of college now. And she was going to be a vet. And she's like, I hate school. I want to get out of it. So she got an animal science recruiting, and she's very artistic and loves photography. And my wife was like, you should do photography. It's like, I don't want to deal with people, blah, 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 blah. We'll do dog photography. Apple bought the rights to one of her pictures.
Wow.
Her Instagram did this, and she's using and she's hustling. I want everybody to hear this. She works a full-time job.
That's a situation where you never know when it's going to come. You never know when to have that opportunity, and all of a sudden, bam.
She's doing event photography, and I won't say what she's making, but she's getting close to making an event photography, taking all of her spare time off, by the way, people. All of her spare time off is doing this event photography stuff. And she's making almost as much as she's making in her W-2 job in event photography, doing it part-time. And, she's 25 years old, and she's got, a lot of money in the bank already. She's learned, a good frugal lifestyle. She's very humble. She's kind. I would say that I try to teach that with my kids.
I think that should be a big thing taught in schools. If you're not homeschooled or private schooled, is they do not teach money management at all, or even taxes. That's something you don't learn. And
I do. My daughter's in college right now studying in marketing, and I spend a lot of time with her with marketing. But when she gets closer to coming out, and there's little things you give them. You spoon feed them responsibilities, right? Yeah. She called me the other day. She's like, Dad, I got this medical bill and so and so. I'm like, well, guess what? You're over 18 years old. You're on my insurance, but I can't see it. So why don't you come figure it out? And I swear to God, her answer was, you know what? That's great advice, Dad. Because when I get on my insurance, I'm gonna have to know how to do this, right? And that's, you raise your children and teach them that attitude. That's what I'm trying to teach you right now, is that your attitude, not aptitude, determines altitude in the things that you're doing. And it can help, ground you in the outlook of stuff on work life. The thing that I was telling you about on this farm, if you, hopefully I put my arm on your shoulder and I painted a vision of what we're going to do.
Well, right? Like we were talking about being able to vision, I can picture that outside, because that's just how my mind works when it comes to that. Not a lot of people can. If I can find a representative picture to post on the video podcast, I might do that. Kind of like your Bob Ross painting sort of thing, and we'll try to pop that up for people that don't have that ability. But
I have stuff I can share with you, because
there
I
you
put
go.
it on paper.
If you can send me something like that, I can pop it up on the screen so people can get that same visualization.
I put it on paper all the way down to the arborvitae, which looks like a Tuscan cypress, that are lining the European style gravel driveway that you're driving in on, and our bollard gate going to the front that you don't drive in on. It's basically a decoration. Yeah. But planned all this out. That property sold. We hired an architect and looked at doing the rehab on the property. My wife is like, we're talking to people like, this has legs, you need to do it. So now we're in spreadsheets, right? Where my passion is, we're looking at, okay, if we build this building, what's the time to return on investment? And what are we selling? What are we selling it for? What is the labor cost of all of this? It's a learning experience, right? And by the way, I need people to do this. Can't do it on my own.
Yeah, that's another big one.
So I'm going to be going out and looking for people with an entrepreneurial spirit, because I actually hope and really hope that I can pull some kids that are younger in college to come work here. And the whole thing about them is a life journey experience for them to say, listen, this is why we're doing the things that we're doing. This is why customer experience is so important, and you have to focus on it. This is how we run the business. This is what financials look like. By the way, I've had interns in the past. I take them from interns, they become apprentices. Anybody that's ever worked for me, I run it through sales, marketing, operations, and delivery. I want them to see all four sides of the business. And then I give them a book called What Color is My Parachute? And I have them read it. And then I have them look at what they were interested in, and then what color their parachute is. Because I've had people before that like, I want to be a salesperson, but they don't say it like that. That's why I think I want to be in sales. What'd you say?
Yeah. I think I want to be a salesperson. Can't be like that.
Right. And I'm like, okay, we have a lot of work to do. Like, if that's truly what you see yourself doing, from my perception of a salesperson, we have a lot of work to do. Now, I will say this. That's my perception. Yeah. I know people that talk like this that are really good salespeople.
Well, when we train our front desk guys for sales, like people that meet people in the door, I keep telling them, think of the as seen on TV commercials and how ridiculous they sound. Right. That's how you have to sound. You have to do it. You got to put on that
ShamWow
cheery,
a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But and you don't want to be cheesy.
You want to go over the top.
No. I'm going to tell you something. This is important. You don't want to be cheesy until you have to be cheesy. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, when I used to do sales training in front of our sales teams, and I used to walk on tables. I was the ShamWow guy in front of them, and they're looking at me, and I would tell them openly, I'm like, listen, I'm going to do this to keep you awake and keep your attention. I want to make sure you're listening to the message, and this is how I'm going to do it, why I'm going to do it that way, and I know that I talk fast, and blah, 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 as I'm going through it. But it works sometimes. Yeah. There's a right place and a wrong place.
Everybody's different. You have to find something that works for your audience.
One last topic, matching and mirroring. you don't notice this, but the whole time I've been matching and marrying you, and if you do that, people, did you notice that?
Nope, not at all.
So people don't recognize that, and I learned this one time that when you match and you mirror people, it diffuses them, it makes them very comfortable. If you talk in the way that they talk, because just FYI, I've lived in Georgia for a while, and if I need to, I can fool you. I know that I just changed it right now, and you're going to come back and say, yeah, that sounds so cheesy, whatever. But if you spent time around me, I match and mirror people. Even sometimes with the Canadian accent, if I'm up there and I'm working with people up there and I talk like they're talking, not a new feat, by the way.
It makes you relatable.
Very much so. And it's very important, not just in sales, but when you're building your network of people and you're doing it. It's a little tip that I'm just throwing in there as a tip. But all of that, you have to sit back and I give everybody who works for me a Rubik's Cube, by the way. You have to look at things not in a monolithic way. You have to look and realize that it's got several sides and to unlock
and it moves.
And it moves. And you have to unlock it. And whatever you're working on, the guy that's going to go back and talk to his wife on what's going on, right? Sometimes it's not as if it seems that, he's got to go talk to his wife because it's a big expenditure. That might be the case, right? It might be that he's going back to talk to his wife to say, hey, we've got this whole other set of cars here. Do you want to get your car PPF too? You never know, right? You never know.
Well, even on the opposite spectrum is I went in for wax and they were telling me about this amazing thing that I've never heard before. What do you think about this?
Right. And then they'll go do their research and stuff other as well.
I firmly believe in that, and I'll tell people like, oh, we're just doing some shopping around when they call. Like they'll do their price shopping. It's like I firmly encourage that. Go do that. See how they talk to you. I don't care about the pricing. I'm not worried about that. We're the highest price in our area. But see how they talk to you.
But people ship Lamborghinis to you. People ship Ferraris to you. They ship them to you for a reason, right? So that's why you're the highest price. You can demand the highest price because it's the highest quality.
Well, we actually had a guy 2 weeks ago that called, and it was a guy that I did in our very first shop we had. It might have been 500 or 600 square feet, like the size of the office that we have now. And we took him through the packages and stuff like that. He's like, man, that's much more expensive than the last time David did my car. I think I did it for like $300 or $400. And well, I'm sorry you feel like that. It's one of those situations where I was doing it. There was no overhead. We don't have a 10,000 square foot shop. We don't have all these recognition trophies of what we've done. Like we know where our worth is and where we sit in the industry.
And you know your clientele.
Yeah.
Like your clientele is.
Well, that was my problem from the beginning. A lot of detail shops, they'll just take anything they can get. I started this business to cater to that niche clientele, the supercar owners, the classic owners. That's what we enjoy doing. We'll do anything, but it's not going to be, well, if your car is $20,000, it's going to be a $200 job. We're still going to put the same amount of love and care into we do the Lamborghinis and the McLarens. It's still going to be $2,000 or $3,000.
And paint correction doesn't take 5 minutes.
No.
No,
the average job we have, we spend about 15 hours on. Doesn't matter if it's new or not.
Right. So I wanted to leave everybody with some of those thoughts on stuff. And, if you're climbing that ladder, foundation work ethic, passion for what you do is important. So find your passion. By the way, and you're not going to find your passion the first job or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that you have, right? You're going to be building, and you've got to invest to build, right? Some people can go out and run a marathon tomorrow.
Well, at the same time, what you're doing now or what you've done for the last 15 years won't be your end game. Like I did baseball my whole life, and I'm washing cars now, and it's done pretty well. So it could switch like that at an unexpected time.
It's so funny. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I love Gold Rush. I don't know why it appeals to me. But these guys are making millions washing rocks.
Yeah.
Now, and some of them are losing their shirt, right? But some are making millions washing rocks. So, you can find opportunities to grow and succeed. And by the way, it's not always about money.
No.
Sometimes some of the richest people that I know, don't have a lot of money.
We're actually going to talk about that on this podcast. This isn't just for millionaires or somebody that's been extremely wealthy and as fortunate as yourself. We have a police officer in a canine unit that we're going to interview that he makes $40,000 a year, but he is doing exactly what he wanted to do ever since he was little.
Living his best life.
That's successful.
Yeah.
It's not making millions of dollars. You can make $20,000 a year. If you're enjoying what you're doing and you're having fun, you're successful.
Well, and like I, Julie and I have discussed on doing this farm, that's not about money, honestly.
That's what you guys enjoy.
Yeah, for us, it's a lifestyle thing that we're bringing a piece of France to here and we're sharing it with people.
You're bringing your passion over here for everybody else to enjoy.
I don't want to lose money. The tax benefits and the way that we're setting this up is going to be it's going to be active income for a bit until it's passive income, right? But it helps as long as it's paying for what it's doing, and we're breaking even on the stuff. We kind of don't care.
Yeah.
Right. And it's on our own property. Right. We're monetizing the property that we live on. And by the way, you see that a lot in Europe. It's a European lifestyle where they do that. So we're kind of, we're like, as we, go into the aging years, I'm 58, be 60 in 2 years, as we start to age out and don't have the maneuverability or whatever, we're going to be able to sit back and look off our front porch and hopefully see kids out there, serving paninis,
new experiences,
and getting new experiences and stuff that they're doing that we're able to share. So.
Well, I think we'll probably end it on that one. That was a good 2.5 hours of hopefully somebody got inspired with this. And like I said, when I started this podcast I'm not looking for 100,000 views. I'm not looking for 100,000 shares. If we can inspire one person to make a change, then we've done the job that we've carried to do. Like that's all I want to do with this is nobody's ever asked me how I got to where I am.
Right.
But they do once they figure it out. Like when G-Technic did the shop spotlight on our shop a few years ago, I finally got a message to be like, oh, I didn't know that. How'd you do that? And then it was like, let's do something to show that you can do it too.
By the way, this may spin questions. Ball of Ice on Instagram. So you can DM me on Instagram if you've got any questions. I'd be glad to, share whatever.
I'll put that in the description for the YouTube channel and all that stuff as well.
I love answering questions for people. There's no such thing as a dumb question. If you come at me as a smart ass or judge me or whatever, that's, I got no room for you, honestly. But if you're looking for growth and you're looking for, some advice on stuff, just ask. Be glad to share anything that I can. I know that you will as well, Dave, to the best of our ability. We do have day jobs that we're doing, and we do have family and travel and stuff that we're doing. But, I can take time away from reading the news in the morning and tax law.
Well, it's just like you when I message you. I'll send you a text, and I don't expect a response right away. I'll wait a day or two to see what's up. So,
do you ever wait a day or two for me?
I don't think so.
No,
I think the longest
quick.
has been 12 hours, and that's probably because I messaged you at 11 p.m. and it was the next morning.
Yeah, and I sometimes I go to bed early, but not often. But I usually try to monitor that stuff. Usually when people reach out, they need something, and it's I need something. I'm going to reach out to them. So need a penny, take a penny. Have a penny, give a penny.
Well, I appreciate you letting us come into your home. It's
my pleasure.
Pretty unbelievable. It was. I know you sent me the address, and I kind of had to map to make sure I could bring the truck if there wasn't any tight spaces, and saw the size of the house, and I was like, huh. So, but I think this is a good first episode to get people started into the podcast, and I appreciate you sitting down a couple hours and taking time out of your very busy week.
It's all right.
To do this.
My pleasure. It's worth the investment. I think if it helps anybody, it's worth the investment.
As we close this chapter, I encourage you to keep climbing, keep pushing beyond your limits, and keep believing in your ability to overcome whatever obstacles stand in your way. Until next time, keep striving, keep reaching, and keep climbing the ladder to success. We'll see you next week.